Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Could See the Invisible Girl? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. The sun was setting and a green-haired boy was furiously moving back and forth on a beach with an abnormal amount of trash. In his hands was a broken sink, his clothes were covered in sand and had tears in them. His shirt was sticking to his skin cause of the large amount of sweat. It was obvious that the boy was exhausted, his breaths were heavy and now his consciousness was fading. Behind a truck with a mountain of trash on its back appeared a skinny skeleton man with dark eyes. "Midoriya, my boy. Looks like you almost have this beach all cleared up." The man raised a hand to his face to cover from the sun and observed the horizon. He turned around to see Midoriya have just loaded the sink onto the truck. "Nice work. Why don't you take 5? The moment Midoriya heard the words, he let his knees in, he fell backwards into the sand. The quirkless boy was wheezing and breathing rapidly on the ground, not caring if the sand was sticking to the back of his head. The skeleton man walked over to Midoriya and splashed a little bit of water onto his face. Midoriya jolted forward from the cold water to see the man offering him the bottle of water. "Thank you, All Might." He grabbed the bottle and slowly sipped it, pacing himself. As he quenched his thirst, he looked around the almost clearing on the beach. "I can't believe I did all this." The skeleton man noticed the expression on Midoriya's face. It was full of determination. The grown man smiled and transformed into a more muscular figure. "Indeed. You'll be done within a few days." All Might took a few steps towards the ocean. "Thank God. The entrance exam is due." Before he could finish his sentence or even his step, Midoriya shouted out to him. "All Might, wait." The man turned around to see a boy rushing up to him. He knelt down where All Might was about to take his step. From his back pocket he pulled out a gardening shovel. Midoriya started digging and from his first scoop he found a sharp shard of metal. Carefully, he picked up the shard and showed it to All Might. "I'm sorry, All Might." There were breaths in each of his sentence. "There are a lot of these pieces scattered on the beach." All Might stared at the piece and then he looked down at their feet. Midoriya was wearing an old pair of red shoes while All Might was barefooted. "If I have to clean the whole beach, then I need to pick up all of these pieces." The winded boy threw the metal to the trash pile, or at least he tried, but his aim was off. "I would have slit my foot wide open." The man reverted back to his skeleton form and coughed up some blood, covering it with a hand. "Thank you, Midoriya. I'm already losing a lot of blood in my system as it is." Midoriya screamed at seeing blood dripped between All Might's fingers and tried to help him. He can see the difference between regular bumps of sand and ones with metal. Each time he does something like this, it surprised him. Over the months that All Might spent with Midoriya, he was impressed with his observation skills. Although it would be frowned upon if anyone found out, All Might occasionally dug through Midoriya's backpack as he cleared the beach. In his mind, he just went through it to make sure his pupil keeps up with his work, but he was just being noisy. From his sneaking around, he noticed that Midoriya does take high-quality notes, not just about school but other people's quirks, including his peers, heroes, and peoples off the streets. Having this much information about a person without their permission should be illegal. All Might was impressed and creeped out at the same time. It was the dawn of a new day in February, and on the train today was a 14-year-old boy who was shaking a bit. The morning was cool, but the weather wasn't the cause of his shivering, it was anxiety. Midoriya was never good with confrontation. In his mind, he was listing all the factors that were against him. Including the fact that he was sleep-deprived, he barely finished cleaning the beach just when the sun rose, and then All Might gave him his quirk. He did cherish the little time he had to sleep before the exam. Soon after, he got cleaned up and walked away with his mother's support. There was something else on his mind. It wasn't the life-changing test, it was something that happened earlier that day. His words still echoed in his head. "Now eat this." Midoriya placed his hands on top of his mouth. "I can't believe I actually did that." People always called him a crazy fanboy, and he wasn't going to deny it with his room having more posters than walls. Now that I have eaten All Might's hair. What's worse than a fanboy, an obsession? He looked up, there wasn't anyone sitting directly in front of him, so he just saw his own reflection. He stared at his face, how his hands were covering his mouth and freckles. This isn't what the future hero should look like. The boy put his hand down to reveal a small smile. He ran his hands through his messy hair to lighten the stress. Things have changed now. You've been training these past months. He reassured himself. Midoriya felt that his mind became more clear. Now he has a better sense of his surroundings. Midoriya looked to the left of his reflection and noticed a girl that was fidgeting with her hands. She too appeared nervous from that gesture, along with her stare drifted into the distance, and the way she bit her bottom lips. It was as clear as day that the girl was worried, and she wasn't afraid of showing it to others. She had light brown hair that flows to her back, with only a little bit covering her forehead. Other than that, her face was clear of imperfections, not a single zit, pimple, nor scratch. From looking at the stare, Midoriya made out that her eyes had a bit hazel color to them. Slowly, the eyes of the girl drifted from the air to Midoriya, who was still staring at her. When their eyes meet, the boy became flustered and turned his head to the end of the train. This sparked the girl's interest. She scooted her position over to her left so Midoriya and the unknown teen were sitting in front of one another. She stopped biting of her lip but still fidgeted hands and fingers. Midoriya peeked from the corner of his eyes and see whether she was still looking, and she was. He felt uncomfortable with her stares. He also knew turning his head was disrespectful and probably look weird. He sighed and went back to a more relaxing position where he wasn't hurting his head. You can say that he gave in and was forced to look forward, falling into the girl's social trap. The girl wasn't shy at all. She freely looked at Midoriya, who was becoming more tense each passing second, up and down. The girl smiled and took the first approach. Are you trying to apply to UA Heroes course? Midoriya's eyebrows lifted a bit in surprise. Yes, I am. Midoriya stared at the girl in amazement. He started to analyze the girl without a second thought. He initially started to look for physical features that could stand out, then he blurted a question in his mind. Do you have some type of precognition or telepathy quirk? She lightly laughed and raised her arm upwards to point at his backpack on the ground. You have a track suit sticking out of your bag. The freckled-faced boy looked to notice that the sleeve to his tracksuit was sticking out of his bag. Ah? He tried undoing the zipper to open his bag, but it was jammed or stuck. The boy was obvious having trouble. He looked up to see the mystery girl more relaxed but still fidgeting with her hands. In his moment of panic, Midoriya decided to stuff the sleeve into his bag and worry about it in the locker room. Thank you for warning me. It would have been embarrassing if I walk on campus with this sticking out. Midoriya sat upright with a nervous smile, then he thought back to her earlier statement. Are applying to UA? Yes, I am. She reached out her arm with an open palm. I'm Toru Hagakure, third-year student at Westridge Academy. Instinctively, Midoriya grabbed her hand. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Upon grabbing her hand, Hagakure's round eyes opened widely in surprise. Midoriya saw this and retracted his hand quickly. Sorry. No, it's okay. She moved her hand closer to her face so she can examine it carefully. Her face could tell that she was confused. People usually have trouble shaking my hands the first time around. Hagakure was not someone who's afraid of social interaction, nor hesitant to start something. On the other hand, Midoriya started to steam from his head a bit. He was going to comment on the first half of her statement, but fell focus on the latter half. The freckled-faced boy stared at his own hand that was covered in healed blisters. Did she feel how rough my hands are? I shook her hands. He started to realize the situation that he was in. I'm talking to a cute girl right now. The boy stiffened up a bit and before he knew it, some time has passed. Hello. The brunette was snapping her fingers in front of Midoriya's eyes. It broke his trance state-like state. Isn't this your station as well? While in mid-mumble, Midoriya didn't notice that the train stopped at the station. Midoriya stood up. Yes, it is. The two of them grabbed their stuff and rushed off the train just when the doors closed. He looked back to make sure he didn't leave anything behind. There was a sudden slam against the glass. It was another middle school student who ran into the closed doors. That was gonna be me. As the train left the station, the boy in the train slammed his fist against the glass. Midoriya turned around. He was pretending like he didn't see the middle school boy. Thank you again, Hagakure. Toru smirked at Midoriya. No problem. She then raised one of her arm and leg. She took a big strode towards the exit of the station. Now off to school. Midoriya decided to hurry up and matched her pace, walking side by side. He was still in a mid-panic, worrying about what to say. At the same time, he felt happy. Happy that he was forcing himself to talk, and having someone nice to talk to. UA is a large school. Which course are you applying to? Hagakure looked down, in a gloom fashion. Did I do something wrong? Hagakure shook her head as if to wake herself up. She spoke in a cheery tone, like the one on the train. I'm applying to the hero course too. The two steadily walked from the station to the school's campus. They were discussing recent heroes that made their display in the past months. One thing that Midoriya did not ask about Toru was her quirk. It was a hobby for him. He liked to guess people's quirks without knowing, so there's no bias. As they were walking from street to street, the closer they got, Midoriya was getting more and more flustered. By the time the UA's gates was in view, the green-headed boy was in the middle of a mumble about Kamui Woods. He stopped himself, not by choice, just to inhale from his mumbling. Hagakure looked at him rather surprised. Midoriya, are you sure you want to apply just to the hero department? You might have some potential in the management department. He realized that he was acting rather skittish. He slouched a bit. Sorry, when I get nervous I just start to talk and it goes into a mumble and I just lose myself. Hagakure placed a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Relax. It's hard to understand you when you go on like this. I thought you were already calmed about the exam? His eyes stared intensely at the hand on him, and he turned his head. It's not just the exam. She then slowly moved her hand back to her side. Both of their faces had traces of bright red. The awkward scenario ended thankfully when they reached the front gates. Well, we're here. Midoriya paused a bit between his words, looking at the front view of the school. After a few steps forward, he didn't hear a pair next to his own. He turned around to see that Hagakure didn't follow him. She was just staring at the building. It took a few seconds before she looked downward to Midoriya. I'm sorry. I promised my parents I would call them when I'm at the gates. Go ahead, Midoriya. This is gonna take a while. She had her phone out and was pointing at it. Midoriya froze for a second. What would a normal person do? He has left many groups of people talking by falling into the shadows, but now he needed to end one by himself. The boy focused on his words so he wouldn't stumble or speak too fast. Good luck, Hagakure. And I can't wait to be in the hero course with you. The corners of the easygoing girl's mouth curled a little. She raised her arms pointing at the green-hair boy, positioning her hands as finger guns with 3 fingers and a wink. See you later. In response, Midoriya just mimicked the finger guns and uncomfortably repeated whatever she just said. See you later. It sounded as if he put emphasis on the word see, but that was to rebound a stumble. Ah. She laughed lightly. Good one. Hagakure then turned around smiling, trying to find her father's contact information, until she jerked her head around. Did he just? By the time she turned around, her new friend had already merged into the crowd, unable to be distinguished. She heard her father's voice on the phone and gave it all of her attention. In the crowd, right in front of the entrance, Midoriya stood there thinking about why that girl laughed. What was funny about it? In the end, he decided to let it be and focus on the entrance. He felt confident in his training. Izuku, your first big step towards being a hero starts today. This is it. For whatever reason, he tripped. Almost a week passed since the entrance exam and Hagakure indulged herself into prank shows. Over 10,000 students apply to UA every year, and only 36 get accepted into the hero course. Many would panic and stress, some would divert their attention into something. For Hagakure, she spent her days watching Dakiri shows. She was laughing aloud to herself when a man came through the door. Toru, you got mail from UA High School. The girl got up from her bed and grabbed the letter from her father. She was going to rip the letter open to only stop and looked at her father. "Dad, can you get out? I want to be the first to know the results." The man raised his hands in self-defense and slowly walked behind the door, closing it. She sat at the desk in her room and checked the door. There was a shadow appearing from the crack below the door. "Dad!" She then heard footsteps and a loud thud from the hallway. Hagakure lightly smiled. "Dad." She opened the letter and found a few papers and a weird object. "Oh no. Congratulations, Ms. Hagakure. This school is now your hero academia." Hagakure was speechless at the hologram. She was going to fall backwards if she got too excited. The man in the hologram leaned his torso to the side of the screen and whispered something. Was that the last one? The hologram disappeared along with the number 1 hero. Toru squealed from the fact that she made it to her dream school. She raised her arms in excitement, and this time, fell backwards. She checked the papers that were in the envelope, seeing if there was something else. All she had was a guide informing her that she was placed in Class 1A and her student number was. She flipped the papers back and forth and got disappointed when she didn't find anything else. "They're not going to tell me who are my classmates." She sighed a bit. "I wonder if he made it?" The girl was thinking back to the boy with freckles. As she was leaving the exam, she kept an eye out for anyone with green hair. She didn't see anyone familiar on her way home either. If he was looking for me, then he probably hard time. She stood up and ran from her room to her father's home office. He was on his computer. "Hey Dad. I made it. I'm gonna be a hero." She popped out from the side revealing herself. The father flinched. He then leaped out of his chair and hugged her daughter. "I'm so proud of you. I saw this coming and have a surprise for you." The two went into the kitchen revealing a cake hidden in the back of the fridge. They shared a mini celebration with each other till late that evening. When Hagakure was about to close the door, the father yelled out, "Oh yeah, call your mother and tell her the news. I'm sure she'll be surprised." Toru tilted her head downward, and in a cheery voice shouted, "Okay." She shut the door and jumped on her bed. She pulled out her phone. Her finger was lingering above the call button. The teenage girl couldn't bring herself to do it. Instead, she just sent a message. She turned off her phone immediately and fell into a deep, relieved sleep. Springtime came faster than expected. Plenty of middle school students have graduated and became high school students. It was the first day for all the returning and new UA students. Among them was Toru Hagakure, who was showing up close to late for homeroom. When she walked in, she saw a tall student wearing glasses lecturing a spiky-headed blonde about his feet on his desk. She walked up to the two of them. "It's time to make a good impression." Reaching into herself, she tried to stop it. "Hey guys, let's calm down." The tall one with glasses still continued his lecture while the blonde one rolled his eyes. "That hurts." One of the things that she disliked the most was being ignored. "Okay." She decided this was a job for a teacher and moved on around them. Hagakure looked at the board and on it was 2 things. The first being a list: no talking, stay seated, and wait. The other was a seating chart. Shoot. Hagakure became frustrated. She was hoping that by looking at the arrangement, she could have seen the names of her peers, but it was all in their class numbers. Another problem was that they put her right in the front of the class. "At least I'm next to a window." Hagakure sat down, putting her bag on the chair, and immediately turned her head around to look at the crowd behind her, while zoning out the conversation in that direction. There are some interesting people here, like a teen with a beak and another with red and white hair. I wonder what they think of me. She was eyeing everyone in the room. A few glanced at her, and she was getting a weird vibe from a certain purple-headed boy. Suddenly, the gibberish she was zoning out changed. There was 2 more voices being heard that was on the higher side. "That punch was out. It was really all thanks to you." One of the high voices sounded familiar. She turned around to see a recognizable face between the boy with glasses and a brunette. She felt internally happy seeing that scruffy hair again. There weren't any words going through her mind, only good emotions. She was going to stand up and surprise the boy, but a man wearing black walked through them with a sleeping bag in his arms. "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shoyuda Aizawa. Pleasure meeting you." He then reached into his bag and pulled out some gym clothes. "Wear these immediately and then go to the PE grounds." Midoriya grabbed the uniform from the man's hand. The whole class stood up and started walking to the door. Before leaving the classroom completely, Midoriya took a glance at the whole room, seeing everyone. When he made eye contact with Toru, he let out a bright smile. He's right, we got into the same class. The Quirk apprehension test ended and Aizawa just revealed the whole expel thing was a farce. He then showed the results and left them all with blankless expressions. The one with the biggest reaction was Midoriya, who had two mixed reactions when he saw the ending score. He felt that he could breathe again knowing that he wasn't expelled. The other thing was that he felt surprised when he saw Hagakure had the 18th ranking. How did she do it? He wasn't furious or jealous towards the girl, but rather more curious. Throughout the whole test Midoriya kept to himself, but that didn't mean he wasn't observing none of his classmates. When each one of them performed, Midoriya watched everyone carefully, making mental notes of what they did. He was stumped for one person, and that was the first girl he ever talked to, Hagakure. She has never used her quirk once during the tests. Or did she? Thoughts after thoughts flooded in. He thought back to how she performed just like how Midoriya did, with the exception of the ball throw. Maybe her quirk is something like external or internal enhancements or influencing others. It usually doesn't take this long, especially being in such close quarters with the person. His curiosity would have gotten the best of him and made him cave in, but he needed to go to the nurse office and have his fingers mended. The first day of high school ended with Midoriya feeling confident for the year to come. When he sat down at home, he reassured himself that he wouldn't be spending the rest of the years alone. He made 2 new friends that day. The only regret he had was that he didn't talk to Hagakure at all that day. At least we are in the same class. He clapped his hands to break his mental thought processes. Okay, time to get to work. He opened up a hero journal from his bag and started his own note-taking. If he hadn't broken his finger, he would have done a page about everyone in class. He already made one with Aizawa, so he added to it. He made a whole new section dedicated to his peers in his class, making pages about Uraka, Ida, Hagakure, and a few others that catch his fancy. He just wrapped up because he felt the effects of his mental fatigue on him. He called it a day and went to sleep happy. The next day is when classes officially started for the students. Yesterday was only the welcoming for the new students, which his class did miss. Midoriya was rather eager to be in the school, for more reason than none. All the teachers were pro-heroes and he was going to start his hero studies that day. A nerd like Midoriya was ecstatic. Also, this would give him a chance to see her quirk in action. He wanted to arrive early that morning so he could talk and try to expand his circle, but he felt too nervous and ended up showing up just as homeroom started. The morning classes were normal lectures, and they barely had enough time as a break for the students to get up and talk to one another. During classes, Midoriya noticed something. Hagakure always turned her head lightly and looked at her neighbor's notes. She's pretty confident, or can she erase her presence? The bell rang, letting all the students know that it was lunch. Hagakure was going to get up to invite some people to join her for lunch, but she was swept away by some of the girls in class. Midoriya, on the other hand, was trying to get up and follow, so he stuffed his bag with his notes. He got up and saw that Ida waiting for him at the doorway. Hey Midoriya. The green-haired teen turned around to see a small purple-headed boy holding an open notebook. You drop, what is this by the way? He was now flipping the pages. It was obvious that he was not reading but checking out the pictures, and then stopped when he saw his own head on the page. He turned his bag around and looked through it. It must have slipped out. The green hair started to scratch his head lightly. Promise not laugh at me. Mineta. Unsure whether he was saying the right name till Mineta nodded his head in agreement. Those are the notes I take on heroes and possibly future heroes. He was rather embarrassed. Mineta closed the book and handed it to Midoriya. It's cool. I was going to draw a few of our classmates too. He grabbed the book. He smiled a bit because he thought that there was someone just like him in the class. Wait Midoriya. Can you tell me who's the cutie on the page across from mine? The green-haired boy raised an eyebrow in confusion. He opened the book to the page Mineta was staring in. On the other side from Mineta's page was the one he dedicated to Hagakure. You couldn't tell. I thought it was a good drawing. The purple-haired boy was becoming slightly agitated from the build-up. That's Hagakure. She sits in the front of our class. Mineta became dazed. He wasn't saying anything, so Midoriya left him be and left with Ida. Mineta looked back at the chair where Hagakure sat down, and back at the door Midoriya left. After lunchtime, came the long-awaited hero course everyone been waiting for. All Might opened the door and everyone rejoiced at his sight, but the true excitement came when he revealed what they were going to do. Let's jump right in with this. The trial of battle. Everyone's blood flowed faster, excited to put their skills to the test. All Might pressed a button revealing a series of customs appearing from the side of the classroom. He instructed everyone to go get change and meet on grounds beta. Midoriya walked onto the battlegrounds wearing a full-body custom covering his face as well. I hope that Hagakure can recognize me in this. He gripped his hands and thought back to the time his mother surprised him with a tracksuit. Uraraka walked up to Midoriya, and Kaminari followed suit when they left the entrance. The three of them complimented each other on their customs and telling the function of their battle gear. In the back of Midoriya's mind he wondered, what can Hagakure wear to help enhance her quirk? In the distant view, Midoriya recognized the hair of a student that sat front of him. He looked between Uraraka and Kaminari body and saw Hagakure's head. She was in mid-conversation with a pink girl and another one with a slouch. He tried to observe the custom she was wearing and flinched immediately when he thought he saw the girls, but what? This has to be because of the mask. Midoriya reached around his headgear and unzipped his mask. He took it off, wanting to fix the misunderstanding. She's naked, she's not wearing anything. For some reason, he could still see her whole backside, making him think that there was nothing on the front either. What's going on? Why is she naked? He looked around concerned to see how other people are acting. To his surprise, they all acted normal, even All Might. Deku, are you Oka? Uraraka looked at Midoriya, who acted in a perplex manner. He was rapidly turning his head and sweating a weird amount. Kaminari and Uraraka were looking at him, concerned whether their friend was having some kind of attack. Oh, I'm fine. His breaths changed. He then looked at Kaminari, which made his raised his eyebrows. I'm sorry Kaminari, but can I borrow you jacket? Okay. Acting out of curiosity, Kaminari striped a layer of his clothing and handed it to Midoriya. He opened the jacket a bit. Thank you. He then squeezed between the two of them. Midoriya rushed over to where Hagakure was standing. The teen wrapped the jacket around the naked girl. Hagakure jumped a bit in surprise. What's going on? She grabbed the piece of clothing that was wrapped around her shoulder. She turned around to face Midoriya, revealing a bit of her front side. Midoriya moved his whole head upward to face the sky. Midoriya, what are you doing? The abnormality of the situation started to attract the attention of the people around them. Midoriya's face was turning into a new shade of red. I'm trying to help you, you're naked in front of everyone. Some people around them started to laugh. A pink-hair girl made a comment. That's pretty funny. Ida started to judge the green-hair boy. I didn't take Midoriya as the class clown type of person. A boy with a lightning bolt in his blonde hair remarked. I would have done the same with my jacket. This was one of the most confusing moments in Midoriya's life. He looked around and noticed that Hagakure was laughing too. Good one Midoriya. She wasn't mad, heck, she didn't even blush in embarrassment. She too was having a good laugh. Hagakure took off the jacket and held it in her arms. Also, look at me if you're gonna talk. She often liked face-to-face conversation, and weirdly enough, Midoriya was good at it. Oh. Okay. Midoriya did his best to stare at Hagakure in the eyes, and she was surprised at how fast he was able to find them. I am telling you the truth, I can see your body right now. The honesty in his voice made Hagakure think about what he was saying. I'm invisible. You shouldn't be able to see me. The boy was befuddled. You mean you haven't activated your invisibility quirk? Hagakure was confused, until she started to piece together the clues of what Midoriya been saying and doing. She removed a glove and raised her arm upward so her palm faced Midoriya's face. Midoriya, follow the palm of my hand. She moved her hand in all directions she can, up, down, left, right, and in circles of all sized. She even tried to JRK her hand quickly, expecting him to have a smooth head turn, but to her surprise he even caught that. Everyone else was confused seeing what happened in front of them. Even Hagakure didn't understand what's happening, but she knew one thing after half a minute. He's telling the truth. He can see me. The girl looked down. She realized that if he can see her, then he can see it all. She swung her hand, smashing Midoriya's face. He was too busy following the hand to prove a bit that he wasn't expecting a sudden attack. Hagakure covered her chest with her arms, feeling vulnerable for the first time in her life. On the fake streets of a battleground stood a class of students and one teacher. Oddly, all their attention and focus were on two individuals when it should have been on their heroic activities. It can be seen as students playing around, but it's much more. Whispers could have been heard around those two. She slapped him. Did Deku do now? Wait, did he do something? In the center of the circle was a green-haired freckled-faced boy glowing as bright as a tomato and what appeared to be a floating jacket. At least that is what everyone else sees. Midoriya, on the other hand, sees something else. In front of him, he sees a girl covering her chest with a jacket as he rubbed his right cheek. They all knew she stood there mostly naked, but she was invisible to them. Before either one of them could say anything to each other, All Might jumped between the two of them. Calm down, everyone. He made sure to spread out his arms to greater the distance. Midoriya boy, you shouldn't be making jokes when class is about to start. Midoriya shook his arms. His eyes opened widely as he tried to stress his point. I'm telling the truth, All Might. The grown man turned and looked to his left and right. On one side he saw a boy he knew would never lie to him, and to the right was a girl who was clearly invisible. Sweat glands appeared on the number 1 hero. Shoot, the handbook said nothing about this. He was still putting on a smile. Alright, do not fear, for I have an idea. All of the kids looked at All Might, waiting for his expertise. We'll settle this after class. Some were disappointed with his solution, some more than others. But what about now? From the girl's voice, it was obvious she's mad and startled. Hagakure took advantage of the wall that was All Might blocking Midoriya's view and quickly put on the jacket that was a few sizes too big for her, covering the important parts. Oh right. All Might reached around to his back and pulled out his guidebook for the day. He fiercely read through it, trying to come up with an idea or something. Don't worry. The lesson I have prepped for today can make sure you two stay separate. It's an indoor battle trial. All Might then explained the rules of the now 2x2 hero versus villain battle. He added a new rule just for Midoriya and Hagakure. If neither of you are fighting, then you shall alternate watching the battle. All right. Midoriya turned around, so his back is facing All Might and Hagakure. On the other side, Hagakure eased her tensing, lowering her shoulder. Okay. She knew that if she's gonna be a hero, then she needs to be naked. She must know what Midoriya can see her, but now's not the time. I will be fine with this. She then raised her arm. If he doesn't watch my video at all. Fine. Midoriya just wanted this to be solved. He looked down to notice Mineta giving him a thumbs up. Maybe I misjudged him. This wasn't a good start for his teaching career, possible SXL harassment amongst his students. Anyway, let's start this. In All Might's head, he needs to make it through this PRD first. The hero class ended for the day and all the students went to the locker room to change. All except for Midoriya, who was still in the infirmary since the first battle. The students of the hero course have longer days than the regular students, so the locker room was empty except for them. Class 1A only had 6 female students, so the changing room felt rather large to them. They were changing back into their uniform and something was bothering one of the students. Midoriya was a new concept to Hagakure, only getting a glimpse of who she really was. I need to know more about Midoriya. Hagakure was the first person to put on her uniform. She stuffed the shoes and gloves into the number 16 suitcase. She looked around and see a girl with short bob haircut. Hagakure walked over to her and tapped on her shoulder. Uraraka? Uraraka turned around. She was in the process of buttoning up her shirt. Yeah. The first thing she saw were some floating cloths. Where do I look? Her eyes shifted upwards and downwards until she settled on the collar. What is it, Hagakure? Just from the movement of her eyes, Hagakure knew what she was doing. She's looking too low. It was a common problem for Hagakure that people are unsure of where to look with her. I have a question about Midoriya. Uraraka's eyes lifted when she recognized where the voice was coming from. She made a rough estimate and decided on focusing on a locker in the distance to help concentration. What about Deku? Feeling uneasy with this topic, Hagakure's lower her voice. Did he say anything about his quirk when you two were fighting together? The conversation of the girls started to catch the ears of their peers, but neither of them have yet noticed. All he told me was that he can activate superhuman strength but would break the body part if he ever'd use it. Aside from that, there was nothing else to his quirk. Hagakure moved her sleeves to her face, pondering. Uraraka just finished getting changed. Hagakure. If you are wondering, Deku doesn't know why he can see you either. Before we went in, he constantly asked if you were really see-through. Her mind started to run a bit. Maybe he wasn't doing it on purpose. She changed her attitude to something more cheery. Thank you, Uraraka. I'm gonna go check in on him. She grabbed the number suitcase and left the other 5 girls alone in the bathroom. Uraraka was going to follow Hagakure to see if Midoriya was safe in the infirmary, but All Might said it was something that they needed to discuss alone. This was important to them and she didn't want to intrude on, although her curiosity was piqued. The remaining Class 1A students walked from the changing room to their main class. They were assigned to review the videos of their battle and convert it to material notes. Just when Uraraka was walking down the hall, Azui made it to her side. Hey Uraraka, I always say what I think no matter what's on my mind. The brunettes stare at Uraraka, who was still thinking about the morning situation. What do you have to say, Azui? Call me Tsuyu. She turned her head to look at her. It hasn't been a week since class started, and you and Hagakure are already talking about boys in the locker room. Azui said it with a smile on her face. Uraraka knew she was joking from her expression, but the girl just nervously laughed because what she said was true. Inside the infirmary was 3 people. Midoriya was lying mid-sleep on one of the beds, Recovery Girl was sitting on her chair, and All Might was in his true form wearing a costume that was too large. He had his cape wrapped around him cause it was dragging on the ground. He was trying to figure out what happened a few hours prior. For the last time, All Might. I did everything I can and see no abnormalities. Should I just take him to a quirk specialist then? All Might stare at Midoriya. The kid had his right arm wrapped in a cast. Who do you think I am? The expression on Recovery Girl changed to aggression. I am the nurse of a high school that train heroes. Where are you going to find a quirk specialist that knows as much about your quirk as I do? Both of them were stressed about the situation. It initially started with her questioning All Might's guidance, but he shifted it back to invisible incident. The two then divert their attention to the front door of the infirmary. They heard some footsteps approaching. The two were forced to lighten up cause they didn't want some rumors spreading. Hagakure opened the door to see 2 familiar faces and a strange-looking man. Am I interrupting something? Recovery Girl was the first one to respond and stood up from her chair. What's wrong, girl? Is everything okay? Now she was walking to the invisible girl. Where does it hurt? Recover Girl grabbed her arm. No. I'm fine. Her feet still hurt a little bit from her battle with Todoroki, but compared to Midoriya's condition, it was nothing. I'm just here to talk with Midoriya. She looked over to see him sleeping. Is he going to be all right? You have nothing to worry about. The man's voice sounded familiar to Hagakure. She couldn't put the connection together. Then again, no one can. He's just resting. Midoriya can wake up at any moment, then you two can finally talk. Thank you. The girl paused a bit. Neither of them could tell that Hagakure was staring at the man. Please forgive my rudeness. Who are you? I'm It was obvious that the grown man freaked out a bit, surprising him. I'm an extra hand around the school. Now if you excuse me, I am needed somewhere else. The skeleton man, the true form of All Might, quickly left the room. The room was back to 3 again. Do you mind if I wait here till he wakes up? Yes, you can wait here. All Might already told me about your situation. The woman grabbed her crane and stood up. You probably want some privacy. Recovery Girl barely passed Hagakure. Would you like some Haribo candy? I'm due. She already dropped some where she assumed the hand was. Hagakure quickly reached out her hand and grabbed the pieces as they fell. The nurse was already at the door. Tell him that he needs to see me before he heads home. Now if you excuse me, I am going to get a cup of coffee. She left the room, leaving the two of them all alone. Hagakure moved a chair from the front so she could sit beside Midoriya's bed. He was still in his hero costume. His mask was completely burned off. Both of his arms were wrapped. His right arm was on his chest. No surprise there. She spent the next few minutes looking over his body, thinking back to what she saw on the screen. 10 minutes later, Midoriya shrugged his head side to side. He opened his eyes and saw a white ceiling. Oh no, I'm back at the nurse office. He recognized the place from the entrance exam. Midoriya tried to push upwards and realized they were cover. Aizawa-sensei is going to lecture me on this. All that time, Midoriya didn't look to his right. You're up. The green-haired boy turned around to see Hagakure sitting. Hagakure! Midoriya yelped at seeing the girl. How are you? The boy was stuttering. Seeing Hagakure again made him think back to the incident. She put both of her fingers on Midoriya's broken limb. I'm fine, but don't you see the condition you are in? She didn't sound concerned. She just wanted to stress a point. Yeah. I guess I did go a little bit overboard. The two of them shared a light laughter, despite neither of them said anything funny. They each felt a bit uncomfortable and unsure of how to even start. Luckily, Midoriya already had a saying prepared for when they were supposed to talk. I'm sorry, Hagakure. His voice became more sincere. I don't know how or why I can see you, but if I could, I would turn it off. Hagakure stared at Midoriya, who was staring to the side. She knew that Midoriya wasn't a person good at lying. Anyone can tell from just talking to him. I believe you, Midoriya. You don't seem like the pervert of the class. A mental image of Mineta appeared in her head. If anything, it's that kid. She cleared her mind. You didn't know that I am invisible? And I mean always invisible. No. I thought your quirk was something else entirely. He scooted his body so he was leaning against the headboard. He was attempting to sit upright, but that was the best he could do. I bet you already know the limits of my quirk, so if you can tell me more about your quirk, then maybe we can figure it out. If you think it can help. Hagakure moved a hair she felt in front of her face. She wanted to look presentable to the only person that can see her. There is really nothing much to tell. Ever since I was 4, my whole body became transparent and has been that way ever since. Anything that goes into my body becomes invisible. Midoriya's fingers were slightly twitching. For some reason he wanted to write some notes. What do you mean by that? The brunette reached around and grabbed her hair. She was twisting the strands in front of her eyes. I even tried to dye my own hair blonde once. After I washed my hair, I learned the hard truth. I couldn't see anything in my reflection. So you can't see your own reflection? Hagakure shook her head as she played with her strands. It's like she knew it's there. Not even your brown hair? Hagakure stopped and looked at Midoriya. I have brown hair. She quickly grabbed the rest of her hair from behind her head. The girl held it in her hands, revealing a hint of betrayal in them. In the pictures of when I was visible, my hair was reddish. More like a strawberry color, just like my father. She didn't look like her eager self. Midoriya took that away from her unintentionally. He tried to read what had just unfolded in front of him. Midoriya realized that Hagakure had lived her own life in a form of darkness, unable to see herself. Would you like to see what you look like? The girl shifted her gaze over. Midoriya sprouted words out of her mouth. A glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes, and Midoriya needed to continue. I'm a good drawer, so if you want, I can try. He tried lifting his right hand, to only have it thud on his chest. Oh yeah. It's okay. I don't need the picture now. Just as long you let me get it to me. The happy Hagakure returned momentary. Midoriya slid his legs off the side of the bed so he could stand. Hagakure helped him up. At the same time she was wondering why he's getting up. I actually already drew a picture of you in a notebook. It should be in my bag in class. We can get it right now. Thank you, Midoriya. The two of them left the infirmary and walked down the hall. This is frustrating. We know our quirk for our whole life. I can't believe we haven't figured something out. Midoriya averted his gaze. Actually, just that phase alone upsetted the brunette. I gotta say something without revealing All Might. Wait, maybe he knows something. His face sunk in a bit, piecing together some random pieces. Can All Might see Hagakure too? Now that the idea of his idol was a possible pervert appeared in his head, he decided to worry about that later and say something. My quirk manifested later in my life, so I can't really control it. I'm still trying to figure it out. When did your quirk manifest? She crossed her arms in suspicion. Doing the math in his head, he realized he can't say a few weeks ago. A more accurate answer would be the day they met. It showed up a couple of months ago. Hagakure looked at him in surprise. And you tried to apply U.A? Midoriya didn't say anything because he was waiting for some time of backlash. Congratulations. Midoriya sighed in relief that she didn't pressure him at all about his quirk. She did tell him what he needed to do before he left school. Midoriya opened his classroom door to have his entrance be announced. Oh hey Midoriya. Nice job back there. It was his classmate with red spiky hair. This led to him being bombarded with a lot of people introducing themselves. It was obvious that he was being overwhelmed. The invisible girl slipped through the front crowd. She knew where Midoriya sat, so she waited at his desk. Then she overheard a conversation. I'm telling you, she's cute. Hagakure looked over to see Mineta talking with Ojiro. Midoriya drew a picture of some of us. He even drew Hagakure. It was never a habit for Hagakure to eavesdrop on people, although with her quirk, she can easily do so. In her mind, she was wondering what she looked like. Did Midoriya draw me that way, or does he see me like that? Sorry. People just wanted to talk to me. The way Midoriya said it sounded like it was a new concept to him. He reached down to grab his bag, and after scuffling around he pulled his notebook. Midoriya looked up and noticed there was one less person in the room. Where is Kaken? The boy handed the notebook over. Sorry Hagakure. I need to do something right now. Feel free to look through it. Midoriya rushed over to some people, leaving Hagakure to flip through the book. Bakugo had just finished making his statement and declaration of war to Midoriya and All Might, leaving the two alone. He was already out of their view. Midoriya walked over to All Might. Now's a good time. The green hair boy crept behind All Might in his hero form and tugged on the cape. This might be sudden, but can we talk about my quirk? Of course, but let's do that somewhere more private. Okay. The two of them turned around. The grown man led Midoriya to the teacher lounge on the second floor cause the first one was filled with teachers. The two sat down on the couches in the middle so they can face each other. From the battle earlier, I bet you want to talk about controlling your quirk. Midoriya rubbed his broken arm. That is something I do want to ask. First I need to know something. Sweat started to drip from the boy's head. I can't believe I'm asking him this. Can you see Hagakure? Steam appeared from All Might's body, revealing his true form. Oh that. I have no idea why that's happening. He started to ponder over himself. One for All is an unusual quirk with a lot of aspects. There is nothing that can influence your eyesight. Taking a deep breath, Midoriya felt relieved. That's great to hear. The image of the idol Midoriya been building up for years have been saved. Wait, now we are out of leads now. The fact that Midoriya was still understanding his quirk was the last thing they could think. If you are worried about your interaction with Hagakure, just know Midoriya. Everyone here will help you. All Might opened his arms, trying to emphasize his point. Really All Might? He put his hand on top of the boy's messy hair. That's the purpose of a school, my boy. All Might then raised Midoriya's to his legs. Now, go find Recovery Girl. Once you have those wounds heal, I bet you can finally think straight. Midoriya gave off his squeamish smile. There was a new ambition in him. Thank you. The boy got up and left All Might in his room. Before he even tried to find the healing hero, he wanted to say later to his new friends cause he'll be too tired to move. I just run in, grab my bag, and leave. He opened the door again to see that everyone had already left. Midoriya didn't mean to do an Irish goodbye, it just happened. I must seem like a JRK to them. He went over to his desk to grab his bag and was surprised to see a ripped piece of paper stuck out from his smaller zipper. He recognized it as the same type from his hero book. "What's this?" "Hey Midoriya, I needed to head out. If you don't mind, I'm gonna borrow your notebook." Mineta was eyeing the book and I was afraid if I left it, he'll snatch it. "There are also someone who I want to show it to. Message me if you have any idea to why you can see me. To Hagakure." On the other side of the paper was a phone number. What's going on? He was now freaking out. He was inexperienced in handing out his own phone number to other people, but now he is receiving them from others. "I gotta tell Mom, maybe she can help me." In a world full of quirks, people tend not to be overly surprised about seeing something abnormal, but that didn't stop people from giving glances towards the floating book and UA high school uniform moving through the neighborhood. This was normal for Hagakure, mainly because she has been receiving these glances since the manifestation of her Quirk at a young age. At the moment, Hagakure didn't notice the stares. She was giving a majority of her attention to the book she was nose deep in. Kaken. She ended up going through it page by page. The girl had yet to find the drawing of herself. When she was in class, she flipped through the pages rather quickly, then she realized something. What am I looking for? She didn't know what page the drawing was on, nor what the drawing looked like. The girl could have already passed it without knowing. Hagakure was going to need more time and an isolated environment. When she did find her picture, she oddly didn't want anyone else to see it. Overhearing Mineta describing how she looked made her feel something. She felt exposed. On the train ride to her home, Hagakure already opened the notebook and started reading. She was a few pages into the notes and a thought crossed her mind. I had a feeling that he was an otaku of heroes, but this just proved it. The girl thought back to the times he muttered about a hero. Then she was thinking back to the events of the practice that afternoon. He seems okay. She read a majority of book before turning the pages to a section dedicated to her class. Her blood pressure increased, feeling that she was getting close. She already read one about Uraraka, Ida, and now reading a section to Bakugo. Why did Midoriya give a cute nickname to a kid like that? The invisible girl was preparing questions for the next time she visits they talked. She flipped the page to see one entitled Minoru Mineta and the other, Toru Hagakure. The girl lowered her eyes from the title of the page to see the drawing of herself. Unlike Bakugo, who had his whole body drawn, Midoriya drew from her shoulder and above. Rather feeling jealous, she appreciated the picture. This kinda looked more like a headshot. The drawing wasn't a simple sketch onto the notebook, it could have been seen that details were drew into it. Not like a level of a professional, but maybe with time. Hagakure felt lightheaded staring at the picture, to the point where she needed to lean against a stone wall. Shifting the book to her left hand, Hagakure started to run her forefingers of her right hand against her face. She was trying to see how accurate the drawing was to her own physical description. From the way of how her eyes were round to her short chin, she knew the drawing was right. So this is how I look. A single tear of happiness was shed from her eyes and landed on pages in the notebook. Hagakure tried to soak up the tear with her sleeve but ended up smudging the words on the page. Oh no! Maybe Midoriya wouldn't mind. Happy that she found what she was looking for, she shut the book and carried it beneath her arm for the rest of the way. The sun was about to set by the time Hagakure was at the front door. She knocked on the door, constantly growing impatient as time passed. She increased the intensity and speed of the knocks, and started shouting for her father. Daddy! Daddy! With the big news she had beneath her arm, she was eager to tell her father. The door was swung open and the girl was immediately met with a hug from her father. Welcome back, dear. The strawberry-haired color man released his tight hug on his daughter, extending his arms so he still had a grip on her. You have to tell me about your first real day. The father shook the girl. She loosened the grip she had on the book and let it fall to the ground. The father picked it up and quickly flipped through the pages. Wow. You have really improved since your middle school days. Dad. She faintly hit her father. Actually, there's something I wanted to show you in the book. Hagakure took the lead and walked inside. Her father soon followed. To her surprise, he had already prepped dinner and midway through setting up the table. She gave a hand with the plating. Do you remember the boy that I talked to on the day of the entrance exam? The man did faintly remember her daughter telling him about a boy she met weeks ago. What he was able to remember was he talked fast. The green hair mumbler? Yes. She raised her arm and pointed at her father, but due to her invisibility the finger pointing wasn't getting across. He can see me. The man stopped spooning soup into a bowl with a confused expression. Like, he can literally see my face. He didn't know that I was invisible. He put the bowls on the table. Really? The father was staring at the girl, waiting for any answer. Hagakure moved her body up and down cause that was a habit she developed in her home, due to the fact that shaking her head would be ineffective. That's amazing. The excitement in the room rose from the two's cheerful attitudes. Tell me more over dinner. The two sat down at the table after he served the food. She talked about all the subtle clues that she didn't pick up on, nor did Midoriya. The two were on a momentum high as they talked about the day. So after lunch we had our very first hero course? They gave us our custom hero costumes and we got change. Hearing this sentence, the father's expression changed from a smile to a thinking look. Oh no. I didn't think this through. The momentum that they were building up suddenly disappeared. He then looked at Hagakure. Toru, I don't remember what was her costume was. Can you please remind me? The man looked at his daughter. She gulped the food in her mouth down. It's just a pair of gloves and shoes. Hagakure's dad opened his eyes wide. He got too excited that someone could finally see his daughter. He forgot what her daughter was going into school for. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, going through it. Dad? What are you doing? I'm calling the school. The volume in his voice raised and the tone was rather aggressive. I'll be DMN if a pervert is going to be training with my daughter. Hagakure leaped out of her chair and grabbed his phone. Wait, Daddy, I didn't finish telling you what happened. The teen did her best to persuade her father that Midoriya isn't the type of person he thought Midoriya was. Talking about the situation they were in, as he tried to cover her up. Right now the teachers, Midoriya, and I are trying to figure something out. The father was still uneasy about the position he was put in. All he wanted to do was to protect his only child, but at the same time he doesn't want to do anything that can hurt Hagakure emotionally. He doesn't know what to do, however, there was a question on his mind. Do you know what you look like? Did he at least tell you? An idea came to Hagakure. She reached down into her bag and pulled out Midoriya's notebook. See for yourself. The girl shuffled the pages to show off the drawing. The mentally exhausted man slid the book closer to himself, studying the picture. He tightened his grip on the book. You're telling me he drew this? There was an emphasis on the word. Hagakure did her version of nodding. Damn it, Midoriya. The man was already confused to how he should be feeling, but now the boy managed to give the gift of seeing his daughter's face again. The man knew that he needed to do something to get his final answer. He looked up and did his best to stare at Hagakure in the eyes. I'm still going to do something about this. The father couldn't tell, but Hagakure's facial expression was rather shaking. She doesn't know what to do either. All she can hope for was that this matter can be resolved before the next physical hero lesson. The sun had fully set. The only light in the streets were coming from the street lights and people homes. There was a certain green-hair individual who had just made it to his apartment complex. Originally, he was supposed to be home hours ago, but due to his injuries from class, he was asleep in the infirmary. UA High School did inform Midoriya's mother on behalf of student but gave limited details. When Midoriya woke up for the second time, all of his wounds had been healed, and his phone had hundreds of messages from his mother. He didn't want to call cause all he wanted to do was head home, so he just sent one saying he was all right and will explain everything at the house. On the third knock he was immediately welcomed by his rather anxious mother, Inko Midoriya. Izuku, why we're in the infirmary? They told me that you broke something. What did you break? She was inspected her son for any sign of a cast. The only sign that he was in the infirmary was the bandages on his left arm, cleverly hidden beneath his uniform. It was just hero training, Mom. I broke my arm but they healed me. Midoriya was mirroring his mother's feelings. Until he lifted right arm as if he was trying to flex a bicep. See. Rather than trying to make a muscle, he constantly bend and stretch his arm to show it functional normally. Thank God. Inko was relieved seeing her son trying to act with enthusiasm. It's how she knew her son was all right. There is something else. There was a breeze outside causing them to shiver a bit. The two of them went inside to talk about the thing that aspire. Midoriya dumped everything onto his mother. He feels comfortable around her so he can say revealed everything. Midoriya was stressed about the situation. He had his hands on his head, looking at the ceiling. What should I do, Mom? She didn't reply back. Mom. Midoriya looked back down. Inko was blushing, similar to how Midoriya was steaming up when telling the story. She had her hand covering her mouth, trying to think of a way to take on this question. Izuku. The mother was trying to find a way to word her sentence. Your father and I are here for you if you have any Ks. He screamed in a high-pitched voice, wishing that he was anywhere but here. It's not like that. I mean. The green hair boy took a deep breath trying to calm himself. What am I going to do with Hagakure? This is going to influence both of our chances of becoming heroes. The boy overall felt guilty and responsible for what's going on. This can be seen from his sullen expression. The mother got up and sat down with her son. She tried to comfort her son. It's not your fault, Izuku, it's no one's fault. Just as long as you try and be honest, I'm sure you'll be fine. Midoriya looked at his mother, feeling reassured. However, if I hear that you are taking advantage, I'll personally punish you. The boy gulped. At the moment, his own mother scared him. Yes, Mom. Before Midoriya delved himself into his studies, he ate dinner with his mother. The two were going over his family's tree from both of his parents' side, to see if there was some connection. There was none in the past 3 generations who had anything that involves seeing invisible object or remotely close. It's rare for people to have quirks that are similar to their family, but Midoriya knew his one quirk was one for all. If All Might says it's not, I believe him. At night, Midoriya stared at his phone. He saved Hagakure's contact into his phone and was thinking what he could text. The nervous boy already deleted his second attempt at a message. Both of them were at the limits for the number of characters. I have to send a message first, she doesn't have my number. As he was typing his third message, his phone binged, notifying he got a message. It was from All Might. He wanted Midoriya to bring Hagakure with him to the nurse office before class start. They thought of something that can help explain the situation. Oh, this can be helpful. He went onto his phone and deleted his third draft and sent his friend a message. Hey Hagakure, the teachers want us to head to the nurse office before homeroom. They told me they thought of something that can help us. Midoriya sent the message without a second thought. He felt satisfied with himself knowing that he didn't send something that was like a paragraph long. This reassurance didn't last long, because Hagakure sent him a message back. The green boy looked back at his first message to realize that he didn't put his name on it. He shuffled his phone in his hand trying to type something. It's Midoriya. Why didn't I reread the first message? For some reason, the boy was beating himself up. His phone light up and this time he did drop his phone. He quickly opened his phone. An emoji of tongue sticking out. See you in the morning. Looking at the message, Midoriya felt his body warmed up a bit. I'm messaging a girl. Midoriya knew his life would change when he got One for All, but it felt like it was happening too fast. He lied down on his bed. It was a long and exhausting day for him, taking a physical and mental toll on this freckled-faced boy. The next morning, Midoriya was riding on one of the early trains to school. He didn't send a message back to Hagakure because he wasn't sure if it was necessary. Texting wasn't something he felt confident in. I'm sure we'll just meet up in the infirmary. He needed to clear his head, so he pulled out his phone and started reading the news for hero activity. The hottest news was rumors that the #1 hero can be found at UA High School. His view from his phone was intercepted by book. Here's your book back. Midoriya looked up to see Hagakure. She then sat down on the seat next to Midoriya. Thank you for letting me borrow it. Hagakure. Oh, no problem. He put his phone away and opened his book to see where the girl teared the page from. Wait, she took it from me without asking. He was about to make an passive remark to her but stopped. It just wasn't him. You live near this station? She smiled. Yes, I do. Midoriya turned the page where he drew Hagakure. There was clear signs of water damage. He looked at Hagakure just as she laughed a bit. Sorry, I dropped some water onto the page. He ignored how the apparent drop of water ran down the page. It's okay. I was going to redo this page since I got your quirk wrong. Midoriya closed his book and stuffed it into his bag. For the rest of the way to the office, the two shared small talk with one another. As they passed the streets, they noticed vans from news stations were parked outside. Some of them were inspecting their equipment while the reporters were touching up their performances. Teachers were roaming the halls with a student here and there. Homeroom wasn't going to start for another 15 minutes, but Hagakure needed to at least warn Midoriya of her father before they meet the teachers. Hey Midoriya, hold up a second. The two stood in front of the infirmary. Midoriya picked up that her tone has slightly changed. What's wrong? Before we go in, I have to tell you that I told my dad what happened the other day. The boy raised his eyebrows in shock. Nothing bad, I hope. She said the second part underneath her breath. Midoriya was able to pick it up. He said that he was going to do something. Unfreezing his face, Midoriya felt slightly scared. What did he say? They're here. Before the boy could finish his question, All Might swung open the door. I knew I heard talking. The two looked inside the room. Behind All Might's muscles they could see Recovery Girl and their homeroom teacher Aizawa. What a weird gathering to say the least. Please come on in, children. The two walked into the room. Midoriya lowered his head in respect. Good morning and thank you all for helping us. Recovery Girl was still in her usual chair. All Might walked up to her and leaned on her desk, and Aizawa was standing with his sleeping bag in his hand, letting it drag on the ground. Good morning. Hagakure greeted the group of professionals in the room. Midoriya told me that you guys have something planned for us today. She clapped her hands. So what are going to do? Chio Shizenji, or as the world known her as Recovery Girl, pointed her crane at Aizawa. There is something we want to try, dear. We are going to use Eraserhead. The tired man with bags beneath his eyes stared at the two of them. They already filled me in on the situation. He stopped speaking to yawn. Getting irritated by the fact that the man was still yawning, All Might took the lead. We are going to use Aizawa's quirk to erase your quirk tempore. Then we can tell it's because of your quirk. Midoriya smashed his palm against forehead, probably regretting the fact that he didn't think of using his sensei's quirk in the first place. Hagakure on the other got excited. This is a good idea. But his voice changed to something more concerning. What will we do if it's not a quirk, and what we will do when we know it's a quirk? We'll worry about that after we try it. The teacher grabbed Midoriya's head and turned it to face Hagakure. Now don't move. I have dry eyes, so don't make me do this twice. Aizawa closed his eyes for a moment, then quickly opened them to stare at Midoriya. His hair started to raise and his eyes glowed a bit. Everyone in the room was actually staring at the green hair boy. His dark green eyes oddly became a darker shade. Hagakure! The boy exclaimed as he sees the girl in front of him vanish. Not entirely, her clothes were still there, just her body was gone. So this is what everyone else sees? Midoriya's vision came back. He looked to his right to see his teacher putting eye drops into his. Look like you have the results. I gonna squeeze a few minutes into a nap before class start. He made a V with two of his fingers so he can point at both of his students. You two better not be late. Eraserhead left the room, leaving the four to be. He actually wanted to leave the room before he ended up becoming a possible solution to their conflict. He didn't want to constantly use his quirk for this matter. Midoriya looked back at Hagakure, who was visible in his vision. What happened? Still being in the main focus, Midoriya was processing what happened despite being informed of it prior. My vision changed. You became invisible, Hagakure, but something else happened. The green hair boy blinked his eyes multiple times, adjusting them. The world became blurry as if I put on someone else's glasses. So it is a quirk that influenced your vision. The woman in the chair felt confident in herself because it was her idea to use Aizawa's abilities. On her desk, she lifted a paper that was on the clipboard to review a list. She happily circled quirk, and crossed out the other ones beneath it. I was hoping it was going to be soulmates. Author: no, that's another fanfic. The boy looked at All Might confused. The two knew that his quirk, one for all, doesn't have anything that influence quirks. So what's going on? Midoriya? Hagakure thought it was weird how he stared at All Might. You said your quirk manifested months ago. Was your vision bad back then? Midoriya looked back at All Might, who was sweating a bit. Oh no. From early on, Midoriya remembered that his vision was a bit fuzzy but improved as time progressed. However, since it did have something to do with his quirk and he already told Hagakure, he needed to lie. I did wear glasses back in middle school, but my vision got better, so I stopped wearing them. Before either of them could say anything, there was a chime on the speakers. That's the bell. Hagakure, you have to can run along. Midoriya, I want to check on your arms. Recovery Girl was quite eager and wanted Hagakure out of the room. When she opened her mouth in response, the nurse spoke up. You don't want to get on your teacher's bad side. I'll write a note for Midoriya but not for you. Hearing this, Hagakure rushed to the door. Well then I'm off. See you in class, Midoriya. With only 5 minutes left, Midoriya started to undo the buttons on his uniform. You don't need to do that, Midoriya. I just wanted her out of the room. Midoriya, I never knew you wore glasses. All Might was rather surprised. He lied. All Might was in shock. Midoriya stared at Recovery Girl with an expression of how did she know. When you've been working in a school as long as I have, you can pick up a few things. I'm sorry. Midoriya looked away. It's just. I know, you did it to protect One for All. The previous day, All Might did explain who knew of One for All to Midoriya. Tell us more about your eyesight, Midoriya. The boy sat down on the bed and got comfy. All Might shrunk to his true form. It wasn't a lie exactly. I just lied about the time. Midoriya took a deep breath. When I was younger, my eyesight wasn't perfect. They prescribed glasses to me when I was 5 and every other year my prescription changed. My eyesight kept on getting better, to the point where I didn't need glasses. Midoriya became slightly nervous. I looked it up, people's eyesight can change over time, so I didn't really give it a notice. All Might listen to the story, but there was nothing strange that he picked it up. He himself knew people with similar situations. Recovery Girl, on the other hand, saw something else. Question Midoriya? The boy turned his attention to the lady in the chair. When you were younger, did you constantly undergo any headaches? Midoriya nodded his head. I actually did suffer from multiple migraines. My mother told me it was just because of my eyes adjusting to my glasses. The woman squinted her eyes and squeezed her nose. She let out a sigh in frustration. Chio, do you know what this means? All Might was obvious out of the situation. Jesus, you went to UA. I'm surprised you haven't figured it out. She then went back to her regular position. This boy already had a quirk when you gave him One for All. All Might stare at the boy. Midoriya, you had a quirk this whole time. Only gibberish was coming out of his mind. The boy was surprised and shocked. All Might shooled the boy furiously, letting Midoriya gain his conscience. I didn't know, All Might. This is news to me. He then pressed his hand against his mouth. I had quirk. This is great. That means you can turn it off, right, my boy? All Might looked at the green-hair boy, thinking that he had a possible solution to the predicament. Shizenji stopped him. I don't think he can. The two turned their head. What do you mean? Listen. A quirk is like a muscle. You train it, the quirk improves. All Might told me how you are a fan of heroes and about the notebooks. Midoriya started to pick up what she was saying. All Might was rather slow. Midoriya, I bet you strained your quirk every day of your life without knowing, to the point where I think it became a part of your life. The change in your glasses prescription must be because your quirk was adjusting the hostess body for its own benefit. The way that the woman said it was as if his quirk was like a parasite. Hold on, I'm still processing the fact that Midoriya had a quirk before I met him. All Might paused. So because Midoriya overused his quirk when he was young, his quirk turned from one that need to be activated to one that will always be on. Yes. All Might, you just gave him a second quirk. She grabbed Midoriya's head like Aizawa. The only difference is that C pulled him downward so she can see the top of the head. I think it's something about his eyes and her brain. Midoriya stood up. So I had an emitter quirk and now it's on 24/7. Midoriya picked it up quickly. He familiar himself with what his teacher could do with his quirk, stopping the quirk factor from functioning. That's that case. All Might followed along. Question after question appear in his head, but he needed to finish the reason why they were there. So I can't turn it off? I'm afraid so. Recovery Girl gave her apology to the boy. Another chimed appeared on the announcement. Recovery Girl handed Midoriya something. Come by during lunch with Hagakure, we can think of something then. Thank you for the help. Midoriya grabbed the piece of paper. He got up and ran through the hallway. When the door was closed, Recovery Girl looked at All Might in disappointment. I didn't know he had a quirk. All Might tried to defend himself. Surprisingly, there were students rushing in the hallways of UA High School to class. A few of them were blocked by the media, others actually stopped for a chance to be on television despite having nothing to say. Midoriya was rushing from the infirmary. Unlike the others, he had a reasonable excuse, but Aizawa still intimidated him. Along the way, Midoriya rushed past a girl with pink dreadlocks and what looked like steampunk goggles. She wasn't rushing like the other late students, instead she was smiling and had glee in her eyes staring at a mechanical glove she had on. I can't believe I got my first baby to have her debut so early. It was just a chance that Midoriya was passing her as she was talking to herself, but he didn't know that. Was she talking to me? He slowed down and looked over his shoulder. The girl was still walking the same pace and mumbling about her accomplishment. What? No, there was a bit of second-guessing, but he was curious to why she said baby. Shrugging off the encounter, Midoriya rushed to Class 1A. He opened the door and some eyes were on him. The people sitting up front were ripping some pieces of papers. Aizawa was trying to put himself into his sleeping bag until he noticed Midoriya enter. I thought I told you not to be late. Midoriya jittery walked up to him and handed him the slip of paper. Oh, take your seat. Yes, sensei. The boy went over to his desk. When he sat down, Bakugo threw 3 pieces of paper over his shoulder. The green hair boy grasped the papers and looked towards Bakugo for an explanation. Kaken, what are these for? The spiky blonde furiously turned around and eyed the Midoriya who yelped. The fright Midoriya experience caused him to scoot his chair back, slamming into the desk behind him. Calm down, Midoriya. Midoriya looked at Mineta for some guidance, holding the papers up in confusion. No one told you? We are voting to see who would become class president. Class president? Everyone in the hero course knew the advantages of becoming class president. It was a way to show leadership and guidance. The purple-headed child smiled and gave off a sinister grin. If you vote for me, I'll vote for you, Midoriya. He took the pieces of paper out of Midoriya's hands. Midoriya turned around, he got a pencil from his bag and was shaking it in his hands. Vote for me, I'll vote for you. Hearing that, the boy interprets something. So we can't vote for ourselves. Turning the pencil so it's horizontal to the table, Midoriya tapped the ends alternating on the table. Who would make a good president? He only knew half of the names of his classmates, wondering why they were voting. He looked up to see his childhood friend. Kaken knows how to take the lead, but... Bakugo lowered his head, giving a cleared view of Hagakure. She'll be nicer than Kaken. After closed inspection, he realized that the ends of Hagakure's hair had slight curls at the end of her hair. Midoriya felt that someone was touching his shoulder. It was Mineta who was desperately stretching over his desk to hand him the paper. Looking around, the class was already handing the papers over to the front of the class. They all voted so fast. The green hair boy jolted down the name he had in his head quickly. Aizawa counted the votes up front. He wrote every student's name onto the board except for 3. Only Midoriya and Yaoyorozu had more than 1 votes. It surprised Midoriya the most seeing that he actually won. The two stood up and stared at the class. How did I get 3 votes? And why does everyone else have 1 vote? It didn't take long for Midoriya to piece together the truth. I could have voted for myself. He was stunned and ended up mumbling his winning speech. It was already noon, There was a chime on the speakers letting the students of the school know it was lunch. Hey Hagakure. The girl looked up to see a green-haired individual. Oh, Midoriya, or should I say Mr. President? The way she said it was in a joking manner rather than praising his victory. Thank you. Oldly, Midoriya didn't pick it up and ended up feeling embarrassed. He was rubbing the back of her head. The teachers want us to talk more about my Quirk, so we have go to the nurse again. Okay. She actually cheered about, becoming eager to learn the truth. Hagakure took the lead from Midoriya. This is getting exciting. The two headed to the door to be only stopped by a tall individual with glasses and another brunette. Midoriya, would you like to join us for lunch? Ida shifted his glasses up and down. I believe some celebration are in order for you. You can come along too, Hagakure, if you want to. Midoriya shifted his green eyes downward. I would like to, but Hagakure and I need to. No, you don't. The four people together jumped in surprised. Their teacher were eye level to them at the moment. He was trying to get out of his orange sleeping bag. Your meeting has changed. The principal wants to talk with you too. So come by his office after school. The grown man was fully out of his sleeping bag. Why would the principal want to be a part of this? Pondering over these thoughts, Hagakure became more and more curious. Sensei, can you? And he's gone. The man was already walking away from the group. The same thoughts ran through their minds simultaneously. Wow. If his statement from that morning wasn't clear, then his actions clear show that he didn't care. It was his job to weed out those who are not hero materials, and make those who are better. He had already judged those two are good enough, and believed they'll settle it for themselves. The group of four went to have lunch together. Along the way, Midoriya was given some encouraging looks from his peers. All except for Bakugo, giving him daggers. Mid-lunch, Midoriya brought up an interesting topic to everyone. I appreciate that you all voted for me, but I'm really not sure I'm up for the task. You didn't need to be a mathematician when you realized that those who didn't get a vote, voted for someone else. Uraraka rolled her eyes. Sure you are. She continued eating. You got the guts and judgment when it counts, Midoriya. I voted for you because I knew you have it in you to carry us through. Ida said it with perfect posture. Hagakure didn't say anything and just continued eating. I thought she voted for me. It's her or Todoroki voted for Hagakure. Midoriya knew that he was her only vote, so she couldn't have voted for herself. How about you, Hagakure? Who did you vote for? She stopped chewing and looked at Midoriya in wide eyes, realizing that he knew. I just voted for myself like half the class. The class president raised her right arm to rebuke, then Hagakure moved a napkin to her mouth pretending to wipe, but she raised a finger telling him to be quiet. This would have been weird to do in public, but she knew only Midoriya can see her. Okiai. Instead of acting confused, Midoriya shifted the conversation back to something else. He looked back at his male classmate. You're so proper, Ida. Some time has passed since lunch. There was a false drill causing a mass panic for the students, but that has passed. Classes had already ended. Midoriya and Hagakure were together. Do you know why the principal wanted to join in on this? The pitch in Hagakure's tone was frustration cause more and more people are partaking in the situation. It was nice at first, like a mystery, but now this is getting uncomfortable. The condition of the situation she was in started to approach reality. Midoriya was next to her. The two of them were climbing the stairs to the principal office. They would have used the elevator, but students who lack disabilities aren't allowed to use it. The principal has a quirk that gives him intelligence that surpasses geniuses. Maybe he's trying to help us. Truth be told, the green hair boy did have another idea why. It was to help him. The principal was one of the few people who knows about One for All, and Midoriya knew of this. I'm sorry. Hagakure looked Midoriya, who was apologizing for no reason. She knew he often apologizes, but this one came out of nowhere. What are you apologizing about? Oh, the words, I'm sorry, just slipped out of Midoriya's mouth. He didn't mean to say it. At that moment, he felt guilty that more people are joining in. Realizing that if they were to take a side, they're more likely to take his. Somehow, Midoriya managed to build connections in the world of heroes in such a short amount of time. Thinking Quirk, the freckled-faced boy related to something earlier that day. I'm sorry that you wasted your vote on me and just gave it away to Ida. His body was kind of shaking. Despite being the truth, it wasn't honesty. It's all right, Midoriya. I'm sorry for telling you to stop talking during lunch. It's just that, there are already some rumors about us, so if people found out we voted for each other, who knows what will start spreading. Midoriya's facial muscles stopped working. Rumors. Before he could even ask, Hagakure kept on talking. Earlier, Midoriya, you asked me why I voted for you. It's because I thought you would do what is best for the class. Pushing his own question to the side, Midoriya was intrigued in what Hagakure had to say. If you think that Ida would be a better president, then I'll follow your lead. The boy was speechless. It was rare for Midoriya to be completed in any way. His whole middle school experience was nothing but demeaning insults, mostly from Bakugo. Thank you, Hagakure. The two had finally reached the top floor. Will you tell me why you voted for her? The brunette paused for a moment. Her face was in utter surprise. Dad? Dad? The boy drifted his gaze to whatever Hagakure was blankly staring at. What do you mean? In the direction the two of them were staring at was the small waiting area in front of the principal office. On one of the chairs waiting patiently was a man in a suit with strawberry-like hair. He had some of features and familiarity to the girl next to him. The man stared in the direction of the two high schoolers with a smile. Is that your father, Hagakure? The boy's pulse started to rush, becoming sweaty beneath his uniform. They were still some distance from the man, so Hagakure took advantage of her invisibility and spoke in a lone tone, basically whispering. I don't know why my dad is here, but just be cool, I'm sure everything will be fine. For some reason, the phasing made Midoriya feel that his life was being threatened in the situation. Hagakure maintained her walking pace while Midoriya ended up slowing down a bit. The father stood up and hugged his daughter. Tour. I bet you are surprised to see me. I am Daddy. Hagakure let go of her father. He then stepped back and examined him up and down. Dad, why are you wearing a suit? The man wasn't one to dress up often. Whenever he leaves the house, he often wore clothing with colorful patterns. I just wanted to look nice in front of the principal. Or would you have preferred me to wear my Hawaiian shirt to school? You wouldn't dare. The two of them smiled at each other. Principal. He must have called and canceled the lunch appointment. Midoriya got close proximity to them. The father stared at Midoriya. His expression was as if he was inspecting him. The green-haired boy on the other was nervous, doing his best to make eye contact. Hagakure stood between the two of them. Daddy, this is Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya, this is my father Toshi Hagakure. She shifted her arms back and forth, introducing each other. This is the Midoriya. The grown man reached out his hand while trying to maintain his composure. It's nice to meet the boy behind the stories. Rather than shaking hands, Midoriya bowed. It's nice meeting you, Mr. Hagakure. He raised his head to look up at Hagakure's father. Too much. The man shook his head up and down. Hagakure did it with her body. The boy straightened up his spine. What followed was an unpleasant silence. This is too familiar, I got to say something. Something clicked in Midoriya. He'd figured something out to say. Are you invisible too, Mr. Hagakure? The family duo looked at each other. Hagakure was the first to crack, letting out a small chuckle. It was hearing his child laughter that made him break his expression temporary. He smiled, looking at Midoriya. No. I am not invisible. Being around this positive environment, Midoriya felt at ease. He's just like how Toru described him. Nor am I. The three of them went into an alarm mode. They heard a voice that didn't come from the trio. Down here. They looked in the middle of the three to see a white, dog, mouse, and bear humanoid that was about 2.5 feet tall in a tiny suit. It's nice to meet you all. I am Principal Nizu. I already know who all are, so there's no need for introduction. He already started to walk his office. Before the meeting begins, who would like a cup of tea? The three of them followed the white creature into the office. He took a seat on a specially made chair behind the desk. The others sat in front of the chair with Hagakure's father separating the two high schoolers. The three of them didn't want any tea, but Nizu helped himself. As he was mixing his tea, Midoriya and Hagakure explained what they learned that morning to the father and principal. Then Midoriya had to give the news that he couldn't turn his quirk off. And that's it. Ever since my quirk manifested, my eyesight has been the same ever since. I didn't know I could see invisible people. Somehow, Midoriya managed to explain it at an average speed, well, average for Midoriya anyway. Toshi Hagakure was still astounded by the fact that someone had a quirk that can see through invisibility. He did believe his own kid, but it was still weird hearing it coming from the source. You can't turn off your quirk? Looking rather sad, Midoriya responded. The whole truth is, I don't think I can. This was the first time Hagakure heard this news as well. So what do we do now? The glimmer of hope she had earlier was gone. She would have liked if the boy could turn his quirk off at will. Hagakure would actually believed Midoriya if he said he'll deactivated his quirk. Why am I trusting Midoriya so much? What to do? What to do? The principal just smiled, tapping his desk with his paws. What do you think, Mr. Hagakure? Seizing the moment, the man spoke confidently. Originally, I wanted to have Midoriya expelled from UA. Midoriya tensed up. But I can see that it's not his fault, Principal Nizu. I have a request. The mouse thing rotated his hands, wanting him to continue. Can't you put Toru and Midoriya in different classes? I know that the hero program has 2 classes in each year. Midoriya and Hagakure were surprised. They can't be that either of them came up with that idea. Maybe it's because they made friends in the class and didn't want to switch classes, and this include each other. The principal behind the desk smiled and nodded in agreement. Mr. Hagakure, that seemed like a plausible idea. I know that your main concern is when Hagakure's hero wear. No one but Midoriya can tell, but Hagakure started to feel uneasy and it was showing on her invisible features. I have a question though. Let's say we keep these 2 in separate classes during their times here in UA. There will still be times when we combine the classes for hero training. What shall we do then? The boy with green hair looked at the mouse creature. He noticed that he was not giving his own suggestion but rather leading the man to answer. Can't you just sit one of them out? He replied quickly. My daughter told me this is what you did yesterday. The dog, mouse, bear humanoid stood up in his chair. Splendid idea. He jumped down and walked to the window behind him. We can have this matter resolved in a few days. Now the matter is who should switch class. In the reflection of the window he could only see Midoriya and 2 sets of floating uniforms. We'll find someone in Class B tomorrow, but for now, is there any volunteer? Hagakure was stumped. She was trying to think of ways that this matter can be resolved through a different method. Nothing was coming through her mind until Midoriya spoke up. I will. The green hair boy raised his hand, not in a high manner. It's my quirk anyway, so I'll make the switch. Midoriya used his common passive tone. He knew he won't be in the same class with Ida, Uraraka, or Bakugo, but he did feel that he had a responsibility. The man recognized there was something hidden in Midoriya's voice, but at the same time he was happy that he managed to do what he came to do. All Hagakure wanted to do was find ways to say thanks. She wished she wants to remain invisible to the world. The white creature turned around. Mr. Hagakure, I have a question out of curiosity. Nizu turned around. He can see Toshi Hagakure again. What will you do when young Hagakure become a pro hero? The 3 people on the other side of the desk were confused to the principal phasing. We know that it's a quirk that allows Midoriya see Hagakure. How are we sure he's the only one? What do you mean, principal? It was Hagakure that asked the question. You haven't thought of it? The principal walked around the desk with his hands behind his back. There are numerous quirks in this world and any one of them can see Hagakure exposed if she were to, let's say, roaming the streets or arresting a villain. The father was dumbfounded. We can't do anything. She'll be exposed. When his daughter go to the outside world, there'll be a limit to what he can do. That's right. You guys originally thought there wasn't a chance something like this was going to happen, but then you met Midoriya. He stretched out his arm and paw towards the green hair boy sitting down. It's kind of pointless if you can't handle this, Hagakure. Do you think you can still be a hero knowing this? Hagakure was silent for a moment. Only Midoriya could tell that she went into deep thought. Exposed? The girl was thinking back to her decisions. questioning whether she wanted to be a hero. She thought back to the moment of opening her letter, how happy not only herself but her father was. I still want to be hero. Toshi Hagakure placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, feeling proud of her. It's good that you are strong. All he wanted to do was support her in what she wanted to do. As a principal, there is no happier scene than helping my student. However, there is still a conflict I need to fix. The thing he was talking about was Midoriya. Hagakure, if you really can work as a hero knowing this, then you wouldn't mind if Midoriya remain in the same class. So this is what the principal was building up towards. Midoriya figured out what Niza been doing this whole meeting. He knew that neither of the students wanted to switch class, so he was influencing all of them with the truth. Midoriya looked over to see how Hagakure was reacting. Her face ended up being a bright red color. It was color he had never seen on someone, even himself. If we stay in the same class that would be good, but he can. Steam started to form off the girl. Midoriya wondered if any else could see the steam. Dad. She was looking for guidance from her father, hoping he'll make the decision for her. Hagakure, I supported your choice when you said you wanted to go to UA. And I'll support you in the decision you make now. That wasn't the response she wanted, because it was no help. She moved her head over and looked at Midoriya in his bright green eyes. Midoriya smiled. It's okay. The smile looked familiar. It was the same one the entrance exam. It also reminded her how the class jumped Midoriya when he got back from the nurse office. He'll probably won't want to talk to me if I make him leave his friends and Kakin. She persuaded herself. I don't mind. Nizu moved back to his chair. He didn't show any sign of surprise. He already knew of the results. Hagakure's father nodded and looked back at Midoriya. He managed to get a sense of this boy, wondering who he is. Midoriya made a smile wider than the previous one. The father jerked his head. Nizu, can I have a request? Of course, anything to make this situation more comfortable for all of you. The principal positioned his elbows on the desk and gripped his hands. Nizu rested his mouse-like head on it. Can you have the other teachers keep an eye on Midoriya? If he is seen looking at my daughter in a way, can you punish him? Midoriya was speechless. He wasn't one to take advantage and Hagakure was embarrassed. I'm sorry Midoriya, you look like a good kid, but I am just taking precaution. Midoriya wasn't sure what to say. He respected what the guy was doing. That seems like a superb idea. We can switch classes then or expel him. Now he was looking at the principal who was nodding. The boy was stunned. He had his mouth wide open. Don't be shocked. All you have to do is behave yourself. The green hair boy slouched over and deeply exhaled. He could talk back at the risk of sounding like a pervert. Okay. Turning his head to the family, the dog, mouse, and bear asked another question. Is there anything else you guys want to add on? The two of them thought for a while as Midoriya anxiously waited, scared to what they can add. I have one. This time, it was Hagakure. Midoriya, have you told anyone about the vision aspect of your quirk? Feeling relaxed, Midoriya confidently replied. Only Recovery Girl, All Might, and maybe Aizawa-sensei should knows. I didn't tell the none else. I would like it if everyone else thinks you can turn it off and on. This would make classes easier for me at least. Midoriya heard what was being said. I'm all right with this. Silence proceeded. No one else had anything to add. It looks like this matter has been resolved. I'm happy that we can solve this. Now if you don't mind, I have some emails to send out. Have a good evening. The trio bid their farewells and exited the room. So this has happened. The stress building up for the past 2 days were gone. Midoriya was finally able to take a deep breath. This is nice. The small time of free breath soon ended. He noticed that the brunette and the man was talking to each other and looked at Midoriya. He was feeling shaky with their stirs. Would you like to join us for dinner? How is it that something so naturally human can stress someone out so much? This usually comes from inexperience with socializing. However, in Midoriya's case, he actually had a lack of experience. So when he was invited over to join a family for dinner, he wasn't sure how to respond. Sure, he yelled out in a high voice. I don't see any reason why not. In actuality, Midoriya didn't respond for half a minute. In the seconds that Midoriya froze up, his mind blasted with thought after thought. Is this a trap? Why would they invite me to dinner? Is it because they feel bad or are they going to threaten me? Calm down. They probably want to learn more about my quirk. Or do they want to get to know me more? Should I reject the offer? No. Toru's father gave Midoriya a concerned look as the boy began to mumble incoherently. Is he okay? Because Midoriya was lost in mid-thought, no one could tell that Hagakure was smiling. He does that sometime. She felt that this was the norm for Midoriya, and it came with this weird charm, revealing how hesitant he really was. When the color returned to Midoriya's eyes, he looked up to see everyone staring at him. I did it again. The three of them took advantage of the father's visitor's pass to use the elevator. None of them wanted to use the stairs since the principal office was on the top floor. He pulled out his phone and started to write a message. Mom, I was invited to dinner and already said yes. I won't be coming home right away. The icon for the message sent change indicating that it had been read. It took a while for a message to get back. Okay, just don't be out too late. The length of the message was small compared to the time it took to be sent. On the other side of the message was a very happy, erratic mother. Inko loved seeing that her son was socializing. She messaged her husband first of the wonderful news to realize that she needed to message her son back. As they were making some small talk from the school entrance to the station, Midoriya couldn't help but noticed something weird about the shadows. Why doesn't he cast a shadow? He learns that he can't see the changes in how the world influences the quirk user. The train ride was shorter than what Midoriya would take to get to his home. Now they were walking between some houses and streets. The green-haired boy had been in areas like this whenever he played with Bakugo as children. They needed to cross a street, and as they were crossing, where the three of them cast a long shadow. Now's a good time. Mr. Hagakure? The man turns his head to look at the freckle-faced boy. I thought you said you weren't invisible. He pointed to the streets revealing the shadows. Midoriya was the only one with a complete shadow. Both of the Hagakure's shadows only reviewed their clothing as if two people were walking completely headless. Toshi's body can be seen with his suit, while there was a gap between Hagakure leggings and skirt and she was missing her arms. Midoriya wasn't used to seeing something like this from Hagakure. The brunette girl was the first to respond. That's just a part of my dad's quirk. From just looking at the energetic expression on his face, the father knew that he is going to need to explain it. My quirk is an interesting one. They label it as in existence. It's kind of a hard one to explain. Hagakure rolled her eyes at her father. Why don't you show him when we get home? It's a neat party trick. The boy can see that Hagakure was smiling. In existence. The name itself intrigued Midoriya. Why not? I don't mind getting my hands wet. The man nodded. The three of them moved from the middle of the streets and proceeded to the house. It was a normal-size home with 2 floors. They walked in, removing their shoes at the entrance. I've got to check in on the crockpot before I show you my quirk. He did say that he prepared a stew around noon. This might take a while. Come on, follow me. Hagakure put her bag down and walked to the living room. She turned around to see Midoriya standing still. What are you looking at? She shifted her gaze to see that he was looking at her family picture on the wall. Hagakure was an only child, so it was just her with her parents. Hagakure was positioned between her mother and father. All of them were wearing nice clothing. Oh yeah, each one of them was invisible in the picture. I can't see anyone. Hagakure turned her head to Midoriya. What? In Midoriya's perspective, he looked at Hagakure's face, her hazel eyes and light brown hair. Then he looked back at the family picture. Inside of him, he felt something. This must be the norm for her. I said I can't see you or your family. He put his hand on his chin. I don't think my eyes can work unless I'm actually seeing the person. The invisible girl grabbed Midoriya's shoulder. Follow me. The two of them sat down on a couch. Hagakure grabbed a picture frame that was on one of the stands. Do you see anyone in this picture? The green-haired boy analyzed the picture. Yeah. I can see a woman. Like the last one, Midoriya recognizes that there were 3 people in the image. However, one of the people was visible. It was a woman in her mid to late 30s with similar features as Hagakure. From the content, Midoriya had a general idea of who she is. Is this your mother? Yes, she should be visible in this picture. With this confirmation, the girl felt relieved. The image of her body will only be limited to people in front of her. This also brings reassurance to her stealth skills. Should be. Hagakure was too busy on getting an answer that she didn't properly explain. I guess I should tell you. Hagakure smiled at Midoriya. My mother's quirk is invisibility like mine, but she can turn it off and on. Midoriya smiled. You and your mother look a lot alike. For some reason, saying this, Hagakure slightly blushed and strangely pouted. Wait, where is your mom? The boy looked around nervously. The girl leans her back onto the couch. She's not here. My mom often travels across Japan for work. Just talking about her mother, Hagakure rolled her eyes. The tone in her voice didn't match her facial expression at all. Oh no. I have to be careful around Midoriya. The green-haired teen picks up on this but had a feeling that it was something he should be touching. Move it off of her mom. My dad travels for work too. This got the attention of the girl. He's actually working abroad. It has been my mom and me for a while now. What soon followed was a small silence. Neither knew how to respond. I messed up again. Lucky for them, Hagakure's father came into the room with a towel and what appears to be a vase filled with water. Both of the teens were internally happy. Okay, the stew will be ready after I show this to you. The strawberry-colored haired man placed the vase on the coffee table and down on a chair. I'm sorry about making you wait to see my quirk, Midoriya. It's fine. I was wondering about inexistence. Saying the name of the quirk, he used finger quotation. Does it have to do with why we can't see you in the pictures? My quirk prevents my body from physically existing on this plane. Confusion can be seen on the teen's face. I can still interact with this world physically and people can see me, but other than that, there is a limit. Mr. Hagakure removed his coat and rolled up the sleeve to his undersheet. I can't see my reflection, be in photos or videos, and I'm basically immeasurable. There were signs of complexity on Midoriya's face. Hagakure moved her arms. Just watch. It's easier that way. Slowly, the man placed his whole fist into the water. The height of the water in the vase didn't increase. This one thing made the young boy's eyes opened wide in amazement, dazzling what was before him. That's amazing. Then the man dipped the rest of his forearm into the vase and it didn't even raise an inch. Aside from measuring my volume, it's impossible to measure my weight. Heck, I don't even know what my blood type is. Like some quirks, there are some drawbacks, especially with the mutant types. Isn't that dangerous? What happens if you need blood? They would have RO give me O negative. He removed his arms from the vase. There were some droplets sticking to his body hair. He wiped it with the towel he brought along. All right, I'll tell you more over dinner. Tur, can you help me set the table? Sure, Daddy. Hagakure stood up and went to the kitchen. The moment she walked into the kitchen, she got a big whiff coming of the stew. The smell alone made her water a bit in her mouth. What is that? She took another whiff and thought she smelt something floral. She decided to ignore the misplaced smell and pulled out a few bowls from a cabinet. She put the 3 bowls on the table and went back to the kitchen for spoons. Hagakure grabbed 3 before. How did you know I was here? There was a sudden voice that came out of nowhere. This startled Hagakure, making her drop the spoons on the ground. Despite not seeing who said it, the girl recognizes the voice. Where are you? When did you get home? She looked around at her surroundings. I'm over here. Hagakure turned her head the other side of an island in the kitchen. What appears was a head from the neck up out of thin air. She had light brown hair and brown eyes. She was beautiful. And to answer your other question, the trip ended early. When I got to the house, your father wasn't home, so I let myself in. The head lowered itself and part of the skin on the chin moved as if she rested her head on her palm. I was going to surprise you during dinner, but I see that you knew I was here. I didn't know you were in the house. It's hard to tell, but Hagakure's facial expression was utterly surprised. Really? Then why did you set up a place for me? A place for you? Hagakure tried to make sense from her mother. She doesn't know about Midoriya. Mom, you need to go upstairs and put on some clothes now. I have a friend over. You have someone over, I can just hide. The head of the woman disappeared. I'll sneak past them. It's obvious from her body motion, the girl became distressed. No, Mom. This person will see you. The shaking of Hagikure's body increased. This is how she usually expresses her fear. See me? The invisible woman hasn't seen this type of reaction from her daughter before, and she wasn't making much sense. What are you talking about? The kitchen had two entrances, one leading from the hallway and the other to the dining room. From the hallway entrance was a man carrying a vase. What's going on here? What soon to follow the man was the green-haired teen. All the man could see in the kitchen was her daughter's clothes and a few spoons and hands. However, in Midoriya's eyes was a moment of déjà vu. He could see that his new friend was completely flat and the backside of an older woman. His face froze as if he was shocked, his pale pigmented skin became a very bright red. Hearing her husband, the invisible woman started to turn so she can see him again. Earlier he came in and checked on the soup, then filled a vase with water. She assumed it was something for decoration. When Midoriya saw her turning, he shut his eyes and did a complete 180 turn. Lucky for him, his reflexes improve over the years so he turns before seeing anything that can ruin his potential friendship. I didn't see anything. I'm just going to leave right now. Almost in a flash, Midoriya grabbed his bag and shut the door behind him, leaving the house. He was scared him off. All three of them had their heads to the front door. The mother turned her head visible like before. Who was that Toshi? And what was he shouting about? This wasn't what she expected from coming home. Honey! The man had the same reaction as his daughter, surprised to hear her. If they could, the father and daughter would be looking at each other in the eyes and know the truth. Sheet! He was internally livid, he couldn't direct it at Midoriya nor his own family. The man kept calm though, he's able to keep his emotions in check. After Hagikure's mother put on some comfortable clothing, she sat down with her family and ate dinner together. The invisible girl wanted to send Midoriya a message before she ate dinner, but she didn't know what to do or how to even start. During dinner, the father and daughter tried to explain everything that they had learned yesterday and the events that occurred in the principal's office. When she heard the whole story and the events that transpire, there was a smile on the mother's face. That's it, Toru, you're transferring to a normal high school. Neither of the parents could see, but Hagikure's jaw dropped open. She's doing this now. The girl looked across the table where her mom was positioned. Mom, I want to be a hero, and you said if I got into the top hero course in the city then you'll support me. That's before we knew there was a Quirk like that. She raised her finger as if she had an idea. I can make a call to this private school that hasn't even started yet. Your mother has some connections. No, Mom. Hagikure became more aggressive. Before it was because I couldn't defend myself, now you're using Midoriya as an excuse. I'm looking after your well-being. It was already difficult for parents and their children to fully understand another, but the invisibility has added another tier of adversity. During this time, Toshi Hagikure was on one side of the square dining table. An aspect of his mutant quirk made his presence disappear from the world unless he wants to disturb. He saw this as a time to jump in. Toru, go upstairs and prepare yourself for bed. Your mother and I are going to have a talk. Hagikure stood up, before taking the remaining dishes to the kitchen and heading upstairs. She stopped at the bathroom before heading into her room. Cleaning her head, face and hair became a typical routine for Hagikure. A downside to her invisibility is that if there was something in her hair or on her face, it can be seen immediately. She would constantly clean herself. The invisible girl had a feeling that if she's able to see herself one day, her face would be clean. While Hagikure washed her face, she used this time to clear her mind. She removed the towel from her head after drying her hair. Hagikure wiped the mirror clean from the mist of the hot water. As she was staring at the reflection of her floating tank top, she tried to picture what she would look like. Using Midoriya's drawing as a reference, she imagines herself, skin, hair, and all. She assumes that her face would be clear of imperfection from how often and intensely she cleaned herself. She imagined seeing her own smile. The invisible girl was riding the train to school by herself, There were others on board, but she didn't know any of them. The night prior, she knew that her parents were up discussing Hagecure's future. She knew that they spent all night talking and came to an agreement because by the time she woke up, Toshi wasn't sleeping on the couch. They were in deep sleep in their rooms, still wearing the clothes they wore when Hagecure went upstairs. She left without saying a word. She did, however, set an alarm for them to wake up when she should be halfway to school. The reason why Hagecure didn't wake her parents was that she didn't want to hear the decision they came to. She recognizes why her mother limited her choice of hero schooling to UA. The school entrance exam every year always tested the students on combat skills in some way. Invisibility has a limit to actual combat, but she accepted the conditions cause it was the only inch her parents gave her. This is what she was thinking before meeting Midoriya. When she heard that there were different points in the exam, she was happy. A majority of her points came from the secondary scoring. She was glad that she managed to get into the school of her dreams, but she often contemplates her presence. Can I become a hero? It didn't help that on her first training simulation was a complete one-sided battle. I couldn't do anything. When the train stopped, Hagecure was one of the first people to get off. Who else was getting off the neighboring cabin than a certain green-hair individual? If people weren't leaving behind them, the two would have stared at each other, standing still. Without saying anything, they walked to one another. What soon followed was a fit of awkward laughs. He's going to apologize about yesterday. I have to stop him. The girl expected an apology from Midoriya. She raised her hand. Stop. I don't want to talk about this in the public. Can we discuss this later? Midoriya, still red, nodded his head. Thank you. Hagecure breathed out a sigh. The two banter a bit before Hagecure asked Midoriya something that was on her mind. If anyone knows what hero material is, then Midoriya would know. Midoriya? What is it, Hagecure? I just want your opinion on something. The invisible girl moved her pupils to the opposite side. What do you think of my quirk, in terms of fighting and defending? Midoriya's expression sulked a bit. Is everything okay, Hagecure? The green hair boy recognizes that this question is different from her usual attitude. Why are you asking this? I was thinking back to the entrance exam. A fifth of my points came from fighting the bots, and my parents are questioning my decision to be a hero. There was something weird on her parent world. Oh. Midoriya got into his thinking position. All quirks have their advantages and disadvantages, Hagecure. Then he remembers the slime incident a year prior when he was quirkless. But to be a hero, it all depends on the person with the quirk. A room full of pro heroes saw what you did and recognized that you have what it takes to become a pro hero. So if it's any consolation, I think you'll be a great hero. Hagecure stared at Midoriya, who probably didn't recognize what he was saying. Thanks, Midoriya. Although she didn't know it, she let out a lovely smile that made Midoriya fluster a bit. If you don't mind me asking, how many villain points did you get on the entrance exam? She saw the drawbacks to Midoriya's quirk, so she figured he must have gotten a group in a single attack. Oh, I got 0 points. Because he was distracted by her gleam, Midoriya blurted out the truth. He then tensed up, squeezing his nose in embarrassment. Hagecure was surprised. Ha 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 ha. The two needed to hear some real laughter, not like the beginning. Izuku and Toru were walking through the school. Classes weren't going to start for a while, allowing the two of them to enjoy each other's company, walking slowly and talking as they went. Hey! There was a sudden shout in the hallway. The voice was on the feminine side. Neither of them recognizes the voice, so they ignored it. Eventually, they gave their attention to something that ran and popped out between them. Both of the hero course students jumped a bit for a girl with pink dreadlocks that literally squeezed between them to get their attention. The two of them stopped walking cause someone was standing in front of them. Hey, you're the invisible girl from Class 1A, right? Hagecure pretended to look down at her hands by curving her body and raising her sleeves. Of course, she couldn't see it herself. Yes, I am. The girl rotated her head so she could see Midoriya. That's when he noticed that she has crosshair for pupils. Green messy hair. You must be the one that can see her then? Midoriya raised his eyebrows. The duo faced each other. Before either of them could speak, the mysterious girl got near the two of them. Her voice changed to something more exciting. I have to show you one of my babies. Come with me. The girl walked between them again before grabbing an arm from each of them. She wants to show us her kids? Hagakure moved her arm from the pink hair girl's grasp. She must have done some weight training. For some reason, the girl had an abnormal amount of strength for her size. Midoriya, do you know? Hagakure looked to see her classmate being dragged by the peculiar girl. Midoriya had his nervous expression on. He could easily break loose, but his mind was preoccupied. At the moment he was hooking arms with a girl. She was walking regularly, straight and forward, but Midoriya was walking to his side. If he was less distracted, he would have at least fixed the positioning. Ah! The invisible girl sighed. He could have unrestrained himself. He'll be fine. Leaving him be, she walked 2 steps forward before thinking about the situation. The thought of the two being alone for some reason made her unnerved. Babies are cute. She turned around and walked at a faster pace. Curiosity wasn't getting the best of her. Hagakure tried to maintain the same quick pacing as the kidnapper. She wasn't about to run in the hallways to catch up, cause it would have been something weird to see. She stopped in front of the door, letting Midoriya go so she can open it with 2 hands. The invisible girl walked up to Midoriya, who appeared to regain his senses and now looking inside. The two of them were speechless. Inside were multiple monitors, tools, tables, and blueprints. The overall of the room was clean except for a corner that was a bit messy. That was where the mysterious person was going through drawers to one of the tables. Where is it? Where is it? She was mumbling to herself. Weirdly, the second verse was in a high tone as if she sung it. Hagakure, do you know who she is? They stumble in and Midoriya spoke first. I don't know, but this place looks like a lab. Hagakure responded, her eyes light up seeing something familiar. Isn't that your case over there? Midoriya was distracted by the stuff on the walls to notice what was on the benches. He could see his hero case on one of the branches, recognizing it from the number 18 label and a green legging of her costume sticking out. It is. Here it is. The girl shouted as the drawer was slammed shut. She then rushed to the two. Try this on. She then tossed whatever she had in her hands to Midoriya. He held it in his hands, gripping onto whatever. Instead of looking at it, he stared at the mystery girl with intent. Who are you? Oh, I guess we forgot to introduce each other. In the other two head, they wanted to emphasize on the we. The girl pointed at herself with her thumbs. My name is Mei Hatsum. I'm from the support department of the school, class 1H. What's your name? She's doing this now? The two class 1A students introduced themselves. Hatsum opened her hands so they are facing each other as if they are parallel. Hagakure, Midoriya. She moved her hands pointing at the respected person with their names. Good, now try it on. Midoriya opened the thing that was in his hands. My mask. The boy put his right hand into the neck hole to see his mask that felt slightly heavier. The bunny-like earpieces were still there. The netting for the mouth was gone and replaced for a hole just for his mouth. The biggest difference was the eyes. The holes were now gone and had a glass layer that had a slight black tint. This looks familiar. Do you like it? It looks cooler now. Midoriya looked up with a questioning expression on his face. He turned to Hagakure, who has admired the mask and nodded her head in agreement. Now put it on and see if you can see Hagakure. What? Hagakure shouted, making sure no one was around. How do you know about that? She started shaking Hatsune's body. She looked to the side. Well, yesterday, late into the day, Mei Hatsum was in the development studio. She was so happy having a small place where she can put her ideas from paper to real life. At the moment, the girl was working on a pair of hovering shoes. She spent the last 2 days on the shoes. As she was tightening up the last bolt, Hatsum was making plans her next invention. If I finish these and it works, then maybe I can persuade Power Loader into letting me make that jetpack. Hatsum was too distracted by her internal thoughts that she accidentally knocked over a small box of bolts. She crouched down behind and under the table to pick up the pieces. After collecting half of them, she heard a set of footsteps enter the room and heard 2 voices. Can you explain to me about the memo you just sent? It means what it means. I just want you to keep an eye on young Midoriya and Hagakure. If you think you see any misconduct coming from Midoriya, I want you to confirm what you see. The girl recognizes both of the voices. The first one was strong and coming from the man who gave her permission to work in the studio. The second one was on the higher side and had an accent to it. Hatsum heard it from the welcoming ceremony. The duo was the principal Nizu and her teacher Power Loader. In the memo you sent, you forgot to send a description for Midoriya. I guess I can try and keep an eye on the invisible girl, but I don't know what Midoriya looks like. The mouse bear creature lightly patted his forehead. I guess I did add it to the memo last minute. He has green messy hair. Speaking of him, I bet you already have ideas to block Midoriya's quirk from seeing Hagakure. I do have some ideas, but some of them are leaning to Hagakure than Midoriya. I may even need to use Midoriya for what I have planned. For now, I have to help a pro and the older students first. If Hatsum was working on one of her babies, then she would have blocked out the noise from her surroundings. Since she was just picking up bolts, she couldn't help but overhear. The voices were fading, making her think they left. She popped out from the deck. The girl was now intrigued. Midoriya. Didn't they bring his case in here the other day? The girl turned her head and there was a sparkle in her eyes. She grins and started laughing. The two observers were taking in different parts of the stories. Hagakure was internally glad that the school was doing something immediately and are planning something in the long run. On the other hand, Midoriya was studying his mast. There were a few cross stitches on the mast to piece the fabric back together. The part that got both of their attention is when she says she could have developed a solution. Taking a few steps back, Midoriya put on the mask. Lucky for him there was a mirror to his left and realized that the tinted glass made him appear more like All Might. Midoriya could still see his pupils. He looked to his supposed invisible friend who was still visible. The tint was as if he put on a weak pair of sunglasses. It's not working. Walking between the two of them, Hatsumi looked left and right. Is it on? Just from the motion of Midoriya tilting his head, he can tell that he was confused. The switch should be on the back. You know what? Let me do it. The girl basically wrapped her arms around Midoriya's head, getting in close. They were face to face with one another. The green-haired boy felt that the girl was staring deeply into his green eyes, but in actuality, she was looking through him trying to turn on the mast. With a click from his mask, the girl backed off. How about now? In Midoriya's vision, the light he sees around his surroundings darken a bit. However, they did not function the way they were made for. Midoriya shook his head from side to side, giving a response. It didn't work. It was Hagakure that answered for Midoriya. She sounded disappointed by her tone. Why do you sound so depressed? The pink-haired girl grabbed the floating uniform from the shoulder of the jacket. This is a good first try if you consider I know nothing about your quirk. That baby limits the passing of light from certain frequencies. Now we know that we should try something else. After all, failure is the mother of invention. Hatsum felt the invisible hair coming from the girl. She was tempted to yank a stand until she noticed something that made her jump. If Hagakure wasn't invisible, then she wouldn't have noticed a clock on the wall. He's coming. Who's coming? Hagakure asked in a worried tone. The inventor girl rushed to the table, closed the case and put it on a workbench against the wall. Power Loader. He usually comes around this time. If he sees you, we'll get in trouble. Trouble? Why? Yes, trouble. I need his permission to work on hero customs. She was pulling out boots that she had been working on the other day. Midoriya and Hagakure thought why and showed from their body motions despite neither of their faces being shown. I figured it would be okay since you guys aren't heroes yet or have a license. There is other stuff I wanted to test out to find me later. Hatsum turned the two of them around and started pushing their backs out of the doorway. The door was closed behind them and they heard metal slamming against metal. Remembering that Power Loader was coming, the two of them rushed down the hallway around the corner. Taking advantage of her invisibility, Hagakure leaned her head around the corner. Do you see anything? Just when Midoriya asked the question, Hagakure responded. I think I see him. It's a small shirtless man with a metal helmet covering his head. Power Loader usually wears a large helmet that resembles the head of a dinosaur. Is he wearing one? Yes. Hagakure turned around. I don't think he saw. Midoriya, you're still wearing the mask. Midoriya frantically tapped his head, feeling the fabric and wires within the mast. Oh no! In one go, Midoriya pulled off the mast. We can't give it back now. Looking at it carefully, he found the switch to the mask and turned it off. I'll keep it for now. The way Midoriya phrased what he was saying, it was as if he had admitted defeat. Walking side by side, the two made it to the class just before homeroom started. Afternoon rolled around sooner than expected. The students of Class 1A weren't sure what to be expecting in their hero course. On the first day, they were taken into a battle simulation. The next day, Aizawa gave them a lecture on first aid. So when the erasing hero said that they were going to practice rescue simulations, the whole class got excited. In the locker room, everyone was changing into their hero costumes. All except for a green-haired boy who was stripping down and putting on his gym attire. Kaminari was changing next to the boy since his locker was close. Hey Midoriya, why aren't you getting changed into your costume? Oh. Most of it got torn up from the battle simulation, so I have to wear this for now. He had just pulled up his pants. But Kugu sure did a number on you, but not much more than you did to yourself. The blonde-haired boy was quick with changing, so he closed his locker. He gave off a sinister smile. You seem like a smart person. If you had my quirk Midoriya, what would you try to do? Midoriya got into his thinking position as he popped on his shirt and chin piece he bought for himself. I bet there is a lot of potential for your electric quick Kaminari. If we can incorporate a conductive item such as It didn't take long for Midoriya to sink into his muttering habit. Kaminari nodded his head, agreeing to whatever Midoriya was saying. He diverted his eyes to the left of Midoriya's head to see Mineta already in his hero costume standing by the door sticking his head out. After a while of Midoriya's mumbling, the small high schooler raised his hand into the air giving a thumbs up. He turned around and walked to the other boys. Okay, we're clear. Hearing that they were clear, Midoriya snapped out of his mumbles and see it was just the three boys in the locker room. Oh, I guess I got lost in my thoughts again. Let's hurry and catch the bus. The freckled-faced boy tried to pick up the stuff and put it in his locker. Slow down, Midoriya. We have a question we want to ask you. Midoriya looked at Mineta wondering he wants insights of Midoriya's perspective too. You got to give us the details on Hagakure? What? The boy in the middle made a blank impression. Didn't you already see the drawing, Mineta? Come on, Midoriya. If I remember correctly, you were able to see our invisible Hagakure. Meaning that you must have seen her whole body? Kaminari's face became red with steam coming from his nose. Midoriya developed a blush and became too flustered to respond. Mineta took advantage of Midoriya's silence and asked another question. Tell us about the sizes and shape. Feeling cornered, Midoriya felt that he needed to say something, but he knew he couldn't say what they wanted him to say. It happened so fast that I didn't see anything. He quickly spurted out his statement. Although he has seen some stuff, he had to leave it be. The boy felt that he was betraying Hagakure by even talking like this. That's a shame. Internally, Midoriya was happy that the kids had believed his lie. But I bet you can get a really good look today with your eye. Oh, yeah, well, yesterday I learned I can turn that part of my quirk off and on. Ah, but Midoriya, you so lucky. I know you are still going to take glances at her though whenever you can. Why can't they leave me alone? Midoriya was looking at the two who keep pressuring him. He didn't want to have this image among his classmates. I can use that. Midoriya reached into his bag and pulled out the masked Hatsumi made. He put on the mask covering a majority of his face. They gave me this to wear so that aspect of my quirk is cancelled out. One of the advantages of the mask is that he can lie easily. All he had to do was control the way he speaks. Thinking back to Midoriya's battle simulation a few days ago, the two recognized the mask was different from his original. That's unfair, restricting your quirk like that. Wait, maybe you can find scenarios where you have to take off your mask. Kaminari smiled and shook his head to Mineta's comment. Midoriya was praying for anyone to help him out of the situation. That was until Ida popped his body through the door. Kaminari, Mineta, Midoriya, we need to leave now. Everyone is boarding the bus. Aizawa said he'll make us run if you aren't there now. The teen was speaking authoritatively to the three. Midoriya couldn't help but smile seeing his savior. Coming Ida. As he passed through the door, he secretly thanked the Ida for saving him in his mind. The group of the four boys managed to make it just as the bus doors were opening. He saw all of his classmates, including Hagakure. Okay Izuku, look normal. You are not supposed to see or react to her movements, she's invisible. He had to constantly remind himself how to act. When he caught a glimpse of the backside of the girl, Midoriya forced his mind on something else. All Might, Endeavor, Hawk, Best Jeanist. He started listing the ranking of the heroes. Ida tried to instruct everyone to get into a line, but it just ended up being crowded at the entrance. As Midoriya waited for his time to leave, Uraraka noticed the change in Izuku's clothing. Oh Deku, you changed your mask. Why did you do that? From what was being heard, Hagakure turned her head to see what she meant. No one could tell that she was surprised that Midoriya was wearing the mask. Not even Midoriya had noticed. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons. Midoriya smiled, thinking back from the morning. I heard that it looks cooler if it's like this. And I kind of like it. Midoriya noticed that Hagakure was staring at him. And she was happy hearing what Midoriya said. From looking at Midoriya, Hagakure figured out the other reasons why he put on the mask from seeing him coming out with Mineta. All of the students of Class 1A took their seats. Ida raised to the teacher up front who was driving the bus. Aizawa-sensei, everyone is accounted for. Take your seat, Ida. Without so much as a second between his order, Eraserhead moved the bus, causing Ida to fall over. Midoriya felt confident that the problem with his issue has been solved. The moment all he had to be worried about was school as the class went to the unforeseen simulation joint. Those were villains. Hagakure's mind was still lingering to the events that happened merely hours ago. It was really an unforeseen event at the USJ. She was coming back from school and was already in front of her home. Today would mark as her first interaction with people who had the intent to kill. Although she didn't fight anyone cause of Todoroki freezing everyone at their feet in the landslide zone, she manages to feel the killing intent coming from each one of them. The interesting part was that she didn't feel overwhelmed. Hagakure was definitely scared, but she calmed herself and managed to think rational. Which is why she was able to avoid Todoroki's ice moves. Aside from the villains, a green-hair individual was bothering her. Midoriya will be fine. He was still conscious in the ambulance. Aside from Midoriya, all of the other students managed to sustain little to no injuries. None of them were allowed to visit him in the hospital since he needed his rest. Hagakure walked into her home. She knew that she needed to do something before her parents told her about their decision. When she turned around from closing the door behind her, she was rushed by a figure that quickly tightened a grip around Hagakure. The invisible girl, of course, was startled, but she stopped resisting when she realized who was hugging her. Mom. She didn't respond. Instead, she just tightens her grasp. Hagakure decided to embrace her mother's presence too. Tur. Hagakure can hear her mother constantly mumbles her name. Some tears were running down her face and the invisible girl can feel it. I love you too, Mom. Black spots started to appear on the back of the woman's shirt. They were coming from the invisible tears of Hagakure. When she first saw the villains, she remembered that she didn't leave her parents the right way that morning. That was stupid. They stayed clinging to one another for a minute in silence. Hagakure tried to move back but felt another presence around her. Neither of them noticed or felt it when the father joined in, but he had an arm on both of them. Hagakure was sitting across from her mother and father. Moments ago, they were tightly gripping each other in their arms, cherishing the gift that is their presence. Now they were positioned so they can see one another in the living room, that is if the parents could see Hagakure. She was waiting in anticipation to hear what they had to say, cause it'll determine her future. The woman reached to a side table next to the couch, grabbing a oddly large book. She handed the book to Hagakure. Toru, please have a look through this book. As if it was floating in air, Hagakure grabbed the book and started to analyze it. The invisible girl instantly showed a face of confusion from looking at the symbol on the cover. Shiketsu High School 20XX yearbook. The girl grabbed hold of the book from her parents. The reason why she recognized the symbol so fast was because Ketsubetsu was the original high school she was going to apply to. Hagakure was well aware that her quirk had potential and limitations in its own way, so she restrained herself. Why do we have this? The father grinned a bit. He often enjoys seeing her daughter act surprised. It's your mother's yearbook when she was a freshman. Toshi moved his finger in a circular motion. Why don't you try finding your mother's photo? Hagakure flipped through the first couple of the pages and found the freshman section. Initially she was going to go past the hero's course, but then she saw a familiar hair color. She froze her movement at the page, looking at a girl with a cheerful smile and bright brown hair. It was a picture of her mother when she was a teenager. She was in the school's white button shirt and the hat with the school's logo on her head. Just below her name was another name, the vanishing hero, Invisible Girl. You tried to be a hero. Mrs. Hagakure started to run her hand through her hair and smiled a bit. That was a long time ago. In her mind, she still couldn't believe that it has been more than 2 decades since that picture was taken. There's still a lot you need to learn about this family. Hagakure was getting slightly agitated. She didn't know exactly what to say. However, there was a word forming in her mind, starting with a H- and ending in hypocrite. You and I are more alike than you think, Toru. I wanted to be a hero when I was your age, but I transferred to the General Studies department the next year. No one could tell, but Hagakure's jaw dropped while the father wasn't even fazed, as if he was already aware of the situation. You probably want to yell at me right now, but let me finish. Over the years Hagakure spent raising their daughter, the 2 parents developed a 6th sense in predicting her thoughts. That picture is a lie. Her tone started to change. That picture was taken near the end of the year, and I was powering through it. After trying some internship in a few agencies, I learned the truth about being a hero. Everyone knows that heroine is putting your life on the lines for the job, but only the people on the job truly know that feelings. The mother lifted her head. It was something that I couldn't handle when it was in my face. Waking up every morning was something that became troublesome. It was too much. The father wrapped a hand around one of the mother's hand, comforting her from remembering the past. Your mother and I agreed to tell you this and then asked you one last question. Based on your answer, we're going to leave you be. We wanted to know how you will feel knowing that people will come after you with the threat to kill, but with the USJ, I guess you got first-hand experience. Do you think you can still be a hero knowing the risk? If the parents were to ask her that morning, Hagakure would have responded with a yes. However, yes would have been half-hearted. She'll still be questioning whether she was fit for the career. The events at USJ and the words of a green-hair individual reassured her. I still want to be a hero. Her response wasn't her usual hype self. She spoke in a firm tone. I know I can do it. Hagakure's mother deeply inhaled. Okay, if that's your decision, then I'll support you. She walked over to her daughter and hugged her. Hagakure started to tap out for air, making her let go. The family proceeded that evening like usual, limiting the invisible girl to 3 questions about her mother's new past. In a hospital located near the USJ, there was a room with 2 beds. In one of them was All Might in his weakened form and Izuku Midoriya in the other. Recently, Recovery Girl used her quirk to heal All Might's injury and Midoriya's legs. It immediately drained All Might of his energy, putting him into a deep slumber. While Midoriya was shifting from a half-awake and sleep phase. He couldn't fall asleep, the thoughts of the villains were still lingering with him. All Might did discuss with him the importance of being a symbol, but this wasn't something that can be shaken off in a thought. Midoriya was tossing and turning in his bed. He couldn't sleep. He looked over to one of the nightstand next to him with some blank sheets of paper and a couple of pens. That club was helpful in middle school. Due to the events at the USJ, the students of UA were given the day off, not just Class 1A, but all classes and grades. Despite not having school that day, Hagakure still woke up early. With the spare time she had, the invisible girl trained. By the time the sun had completely rose, she already put her miles in and started some weight training. She was going to put in more time for her routine. However, her day off wasn't completely free. All of Class 1A were given times to go to the police station and give off their statement at a police station that was close to the school. Hagakure cleaned herself up, placing her hair in her usual ponytail. The invisible girl put on a light red shirt and brown shorts. As she was putting on her top, a thought crossed her mind. I guess this doesn't match my hair anymore. Hagakure left her home, not before letting her parents know she was leaving. She already familiarized where the station was, a few blocks from the school. It was just a simple train ride and a walk before she got into the station. I'm going to bring a lot of villains here. Inside the station, she walked up to one of the officers behind the counter. Good morning. I'm here from UA to give my report about the USJ. Here's my school ID. The man behind the counter lifted up his head. He was doing a crossword puzzle. The detection is already doing an interview, so you have to wait. Or she could come with me. A man with the head of a dog crept up on the officer. Chief. He slid the newspaper across. The man moved around and opened a door that led deeper into the station. Come along, it won't take too long. Hagakure soon followed suit. The interview was very simple. She was asked with what happened that day and what she did. Then she was instructed to give a description of everyone she saw, physical and quirk description. It didn't take more than 10 minutes. Okay, and we are done. The Dalmatian man shut the book. That's it. Despite not seeing her physical expression, the man picked up her feelings from her tone. We could have done this after the USJ? The chief opened the door, holding it open like a gentleman. Yeah, but we like to assume that is some trauma to these kind of events and let everyone meet their family first, letting them know they're all right. When the two of them left a room, Hagakure looked down the hall to see a certain green-haired individual with a plan-looking guy in a trench coat. Midoriya? Hagakure. Midoriya was surprised. Were you giving your report too? Yeah. I'm surprised it didn't take 10 minutes. Wait, you took 10 minutes? Mine was half an hour long. The man next to Midoriya tapped his binder. That's what happened when you offer to draw all the villains you see and give a verbal description for each. As he tapped his binder, a couple of pieces of paper slipped through, revealing high-quality images of a man cover in hands and a black mist object. The plain man picked up the slips of paper. Your eyesight is a gift and a curse. He looked back at Hagakure and spoke in a shame manner. In more ways than you think. Well, knowledge is power in this world. Thank you too for your cooperation. The grown man started to lead the two high schoolers to the entrance of the station. I'm sure the two of you are going to make great heroes in the future. Have a safe trip home. Before they knew, they were escorted outside. Not wanting to stand still, Midoriya started walking towards the station and Hagakure soon followed. How do you feel, Hagakure? How are you handling the attack? The not-so-invisible girl looked up. I know it's strange, but I actually feel better now than I did going in. What about you, though? She examined the Midoriya, up and down. She could see a layer of bandages below his shorts. The villains must have done a number on you if you were taken into an ambush. As she spoke, she noticed Midoriya was becoming embarrassed. She remembered the trial battles that they did with All Might. You broke your own legs, didn't you? Yeah. I wasn't thinking and just jumped right in. Midoriya responded just when the two of them walked onto a street neither of them were familiar with. There were an assortment of stores and restaurants along the way. Right at the corner of the street where they turned, there was an arcade. This street looked new. Hagakure were commenting on how everything was fresh. That's because it is. There was a villain with a shockwave quirk that destroyed this whole place. They must have finished construction. Midoriya turned around to see that Hagakure's head was looking to the left as they walk. She was eyeing a large claw machine right in front of an arcade, one that's supposed to draw people in. Looking at where she was staring, Midoriya knew that she was looking up a large chicken plush. Hagakure. Yeah. You were staring at that chicken. Do you want to try and win it? The girl bit her lip and looked at her watch. There's plenty of time. I do. Hagakure dug around in her handbag and pulled out a couple of coins and immediately put them all into the claw machine. Come on. Try after try. Invisible Girl constantly walked around the side to make sure the claw was lining up perfectly. However, perfection doesn't mean a guaranteed win. She had the giant plush right on the head, for it to only fall when it retrotected to the top. "This thing is rig," Hagakure said as she slammed her arms to the glass. "I'll give it a try." Midoriya walked up, inserting the coins he dug through his pocket for. "Good luck." She said it in a sarcastic tone. She was standing behind to see Midoriya doing his run. "You're never going to get it." The green-haired teen wasn't moving to the side of the machine, rather he just guessed. The machine's timer went off and the claw dropped. The front lining was good, sparking joy in their eyes. However, that soon disappeared when it fell behind the chicken. "Better luck next time," Hagakure said as she slammed him on the back. For her jaw to only drop when she saw the doll raise. The claw grabbed the plush's tage from behind. Both were amazed as it shifted across and dropped down the chute. The girl grabbed it and turned to Midoriya. "How? That must have been a 1 in a million grab." "I'm just lucky." Midoriya just smiled. He always had luck when he tried collecting All Might's figurines. However, the luckiest moment for him was when All Might gave him one for all. The two walked on. Hagakure had her plush beneath her arm and Midoriya was observing anything that stood out. The store that the two of them were staring at boba tea shop. "Let's grab a drink to celebrate our win against those villains." She wasn't pointing to the store with a finger, rather with her hand and arm towards the store. It's a habit she developed to emphasize a lack of visual aid. The sudden raised in her arm disturbed the green-haired teen. It wasn't the fact Midoriya didn't want to say yes, but rather, the teen lacked any experience in these type of situation. Internally, he felt uncomfortable and became short of breath. He doesn't know how, but he managed to put out a word, "Sure." They entered the store and ordered. Midoriya got a mint-flavored drink while Hagakure wanted to try a clear special. They sat down and Hagakure took a photo of their drink and posted it on Instagram. The teens enjoyed their boba and one another's company. Midway, Hagakure asked Midoriya a question that was on her mind. "How were you able to draw so good?" "Oh." He took a sip from his drink. "When I was in middle school, I was in an art club." What Midoriya was saying wasn't a lie. He did join the art club for the first and second year in middle school. He would have stayed longer if it wasn't for his exercising schedule. He joined cause was good at drawing people, but the true intentions were to make friends. However, he was unable to click with the few members, always feel anxious. After that, he practiced by himself, perfecting his gray shading and realistic drawings. When the invisible girl was going to ask a followed-up question, Midoriya stood up. "Excuse me." The green-hair boy was embarrassed as he walked towards the back where the restroom are. Nature called for Midoriya and Hagakure took out her cell phone. When they were talking, her phone vibrated a couple of times. Ashido Mina, her newly pink-skinned horned friend, messaged her a couple of times asking about where the store was. Then she sent something that made her chuckle. "What's so funny?" Midoriya returned from his small trip and sat down. "It's nothing. Mina saw the picture I posted online, and she started messaging me." She then turned her phone to Midoriya. "She sent something funny, see?" Just then, there was a ding on her phone, and Midoriya read the message. Hagakure wasn't sure what he read but it made him steam up. The invisible girl looked back at her phone. "Hey girl, enjoy the rest of your date," tongue sticking out. She looked back and connected the dots. "You said this is a date?" Midoriya exclaimed. "Is this a date?" Hagakure looked at the nervous green-hair boy. "He's such an introvert." Hagakure couldn't help but lightly grin, thinking how he is a unique individual. "No, this is just two friends hanging out." She was going to follow asking if he had hang out with friends, but has a good idea of the boy's answer. Not wanting to embarrass him any further, the two of them finished up their sweet drinks and headed to the station. The rest of the way, Midoriya felt kind of tense. He was wondering if Mina texted that message because she was having fun or do other people think of them like that. He has seen her naked. No, don't think about that. The two rode the train, continued talking about their own experiences in the USJ. And finally the train stopped at Hagakure's station. "See you in school tomorrow." She waved and let through the automatic doors. "Oh wait." Midoriya stood up and turned his backpack to his front and pulled out a manila envelope. "Here, this is a gift/apology for your parents." He handed the envelope to his friend, who noticed that it was sealed. My legs were broken in the hospital, but I could still use my hands. Midoriya raised his hands and did a bit of jazz hands. From that action alone, she figured out what's in the envelope. Midoriya, you didn't have to. Before she could finish, the speakers to the train station turned on, letting everyone know the doors were closing, shutting between the two teens. The two didn't break eye contact until they were out of each other's sight. Being stared back made the girl felt happy. Although she was tempted to open the envelope, it would have been clear that someone opened it from the rip marks. Gotta be patient. She hurried home so she can see the content, not noticing the norm of people staring at floating clothing and a chicken plush. Hagakure walked into her home to see her parents sitting next to each other watching TV. Toru, welcome home. It was her father who greeted her, but he still remained sitting down with his wife leaning on him. We would get up and hug you, but we're just too comfortable. Tossing the chicken upstairs, she then joined the two of them on the couch, handing them the envelope. What's this? It's a gift. The mother grabbed the note and started peeling the fold. I ran into Midoriya and he gave me this. The mom looked at her daughter confused. She wasn't sure who Midoriya is. The one that can see me. She pulled out a piece of paper that had, but what else? A drawing of the girl in her uniform. The father and girl already noticed the drawing was different than the one from before. The last one was sketchish, while this one was on another level. Not to mention it's from the collar up, but resembles the body frame from the drawing of her father. This one came out better than the last one. Yeah. He had more time working on this. The father and daughter were just looking at the extra bits they didn't see before. Maybe we should frame this one. Toshi's smile faded away when he realized his wife hadn't said anything. She was too busy looking at the photo, frozen. Honey. She then wrapped her arm around her daughter. You take a lot after your mother, you know that, dear. Hagakure nodded in her mother's arms. Yeah. Come on. There's a perfect frame in the box where I found the yearbook. The grown man remained on the couch as the two went upstairs to the storage room. It was easy to find the pre-opened box, and the two started reminiscing. Then the mother pulled out the familiar hat. Ah man. I haven't wore this in the longest time. It was the Shiketsu uniform hat. The mother placed it on top of her head. That's nice, Mom. Did you keep your hero costume too? No. I had to return that, but they did let me keep the hat. She then gave off a smile and opened her eyes. This is why Toru, look. The mother activated her quick and turned herself invisible. Hagakure wasn't giving a reaction. What am I supposed to be seeing? It's not what you're supposed to see, but what you're not supposed to see? If the girl was visible, then the mother would have seen her raised an eyebrow. That's when the mother's long sleeve rose and pointed to her head. That's when both of Hagakure's eyes shot open. What happened to the hat? It turned invisible too. This hat is made out of my hair so I can activate my quirk with it. We can do it with you. Hagakure was stunned. She stood there opened mouth. That's if anyone could noticed. What?